across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. What is it? A couple of minutes past 4. It is Monday afternoon, the 2nd of June, and back from 2 weeks of dealing with copious quantities of children. And I will now publicly salute my wife and any stay-at-home mother. What an absolutely amazing and impossible job you do. And thank Christ I'm back here. Not that the viewers and the listeners will think that, but I'm just saying that for my own personal gratification. I hope you're OK. We had a good time. Loads on the show today. The A-Team are back. Now, when I left 2.5 weeks ago, Ryan, the lanky producer, was on an island in Greece. Jodie, his assistant, was on the same island in Greece. There were rumours they were at it. I don't know if this is true, but we will find out. They're both back looking, I don't know, slightly... he looks smug, she looks embarrassed, but we'll tell you more. In fact, if you do ring the show this afternoon, say to Jodie, are you and Ryan an item? Excellent way to start. As ever, if you'd like to be part of this vain attempt at the next 3 hours of entertainment, 0344 499 1000 is your telephone number. You can text me. You can do it if you want to. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. And lanky smug Ryan would like a voice note, please, on WhatsApp. 0344 499 1000. That apparently is what we have to talk about. 4 minutes past 4. I don't know really where to start, so I'll tell you where I am going to start. I'm going to start with a man who makes me look even worse than I genuinely am. The legend, what can I say, political legend of the Sun, just a genius in so many ways, a connoisseur of wine and food and women. Ladies and gentlemen, Harry Cole, good afternoon.
God, you should go away more often. You come back all fired up.
No, mate, listen, I'm always fired up. How are you?
I'm very well, Jeremy. How are you? How's your camping? Let's go on and say about it.
See, I went glamping, ladies and gentlemen, and it was all going well for about 24 hours, and then I asked, did I not? You might have seen on Instagram, where the shower was, and it was a bucket in a hut. I phoned a friend of mine, and he said the nearest I get to camping, he said genuinely, is to go into one of those nice 5-star lodges off Loch Lomond, I think again. But the kids loved it. That's the main thing.
Where were you?
I'm not telling you where.
A secret location?
No, because I don't even damn well know. I mean, honestly, I was in the middle of some field somewhere, but it was fine. It was great. And then we were abroad before that. But listen, that was interesting, by the way. Coming back from abroad, it took me an hour to get through passport control.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was away last week, and it took me about 20 seconds.
Of course it did, because you are Harry Cole.
Well, we've got the e-gates, haven't we?
Well, I don't even know how that works.
You just put your passport in it. It took me in America. It took you 3 hours to get into America.
Don't
it's unbelievable.
live there, did that.
Yeah.
Great article. I want to start with this in the Sun today. If we can put it up on screen. Nigel Farage told me the exact moment he decided to run for PM. Now he's marching to number 10, but everything is about to change. Let's kick off and talk about this tremendous article today. It was 365 days ago, wasn't it?
It
almost,
was
to the election.
Yeah. Well, no, not to the election. Till the moment about a month out of the election, where Nigel Farage, having told everyone, no, I'm sitting this one
I'm
out.
not doing it.
I'm going to go campaign for Donald Trump. I can be more useful on the sidelines. And as he said to me, I spoke to him over the weekend, and I was marking this moment. He said, I was sitting at home. I've been thinking about it for 48 hours. I had a group call, and I just said, F it. I'm going to do it. And actually, you think, where we are now...
F it is now going to be the new phrase. What are you lot? F it. Let's do a show. F it. Brilliant.
If you look at where we are 365 days later, I think even
amazing.
Nigel Farage can't quite believe his sort of whippet-like instincts were clearly correct, that there was going to be a very unpopular incoming Labour government that was only winning because the Tories were so... people wanted to kick the Tories out so much. And lo and behold, here he is, on 30% of the polls, 10% ahead of Labour, could well come second in a Scottish by-election on Thursday. He's won one by-election. He's got 600 councillors. And I think even in his wildest dreams, he couldn't imagine how well this is going.
It's interesting. I was with him about a month ago, and there is something infectious about him, right? I think, I mean, apart from my opinion about what the Tories became and what Labour most definitely are, I think that a lot of people are galvanised by the way that he has conviction. And you might even disagree with some of what he says, but that dearth, right, that sort of politician has been sadly missing.
It's also the authenticity, easy for me to say.
Yes. Do you want to do that again?
Which is what people are lacking. And also, look, the Tories...
He's original, isn't he?
The Tories have, spent 14 years, doing what they did. Labour have come in and become historically unpopular in the first 10 months. The most unpopular government after 10 months in polling history.
Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. They are at a historical low for this one. They should be on a sort of Blair-style honeymoon. They had the whole support of, the BBC, the chattering classes. Everyone's, the grown-ups are back in charge again. And you know what? They lied to the voters. They put up taxes they said they weren't going to do, and here we are. And so actually,
and actually, let's talk
Farage,
about the Tories. You're talking about Farage and what's it's like a perfect combination. The Tories have been appalling.
People just think, well, they're not going to go back to the Tories anytime soon. Labour, they wanted change, and Labour, they don't like the change. Keep the change, actually. Thank you very much. And so why not give these guys a go? The legacy parties, the older established parties, have had their chance and they've blown it successfully. So why not give these other guys a go? Now, this is the point I'll try and make in the article and the warning of what does it look like in 365 days' time from now?
Yep.
So the last place you ever want to be in politics is out front, especially early. And he's painted a big target on his back, and he's going to have not only the government coming after him, not only the Tories coming after him, not only the Lib Dems coming after him, but what we used to affectionately known as the Blob. You're going to have the BBC, you're going to have the charity sector of the unions, you're going to have the quangos, government departments. Think about the establishment. It's the establishment, and think about how they dealt with Trump the first time round and how they resisted Brexit. I think that's going to look like a teddy bear's picnic if they genuinely think reform are going to win or even be in government. And let's look at the hysterical reaction to them winning some councils.
But can I just say that I'm completely with you, and the reason I said about him being a conviction politician is if you are going to break the status quo in this country against the very institutions that you said that seem to have decided what our politics should be, then you have got to have a massive skin on you. Now Trump has proven that you can be hated by half the people and win a landslide majority. Do we believe that Nigel Farage is strong enough, mentally, physically, morally, in whichever way you want to describe? We've got the chairman of Reform, Zia Youssef, later on in the show, which would be fantastic. Do we believe he is that man? Because people I speak to, whatever their politics, they'll go, do you know what? Just something other than these two might be a good shout.
But I think that is too big a mission for anyone.
Yeah.
Even Donald Trump, if you look at him towards the end of the campaign, when he was presenting a united force. He had other big names around him. He was big enough to have big names on his ticket. He had a Kennedy on his ticket, for Christ's sake. One of the nuttier Kennedys, probably. But he had a Kennedy. J.D. Vance. Normally the vice presidential candidate is sort of either a bit embarrassing or appointed for appointed for a particular political reason. But no, he let J.D. Vance get out there and be a presence. So I think what Farage needs to do, and he's only got 5 MPs, which is a problem, is he needs to start bringing in some bigger characters. And I think he is open to this. He said this job is too big for one person to do. He's going to need an alternative government to present.
Do you think he will be any good at delegation? The big argument about Rupert Lowe was you've moved off message because you just want to, get over the blob and get elected.
Well, that's what
for
we're
me is
find
can he delegate?
And so I think the first thing to do, because obviously the first time that the Tories and Labour have even landed a glove on Farage in the last 9 months was last week, when he made a series of announcements about policy, scrapping the 2-child benefit cap, bringing in restoring winter fuel payments, and crucially taking everyone who earns under 20,000 quid out of income tax altogether. Now he's just spent 12, 13, 14 billion quid in 5 seconds there. So the thing is that they're going to try and rip him apart on the details. And he's going to need better answers than just saying, "Oh, we'll scrap net zero and we'll do some cuts."
Be really interesting. We'll put that to Zia Youssef later. This is really interesting. I want to get straight to it. Jeremy and Harry, if a government minister, as they have done, openly admits on TV that the UK has lost control of the borders, should that not be declared a national emergency? There are 2 main stories today. Let's be perfectly honest. One is that we're moving to a war footing. Keir Starmer apparently has promised will be 2.5 of GDP on defence by 2027, and he set out an ambition, of course you have, to hit 3% by 2034. Apparently he's going to beef up all of this. We're going to be strong. We're going to be... And yet, and I'm not apologising for using it, he's sitting over our country being invaded on a daily, monthly, weekly basis. What was it? 1,200 men arrived on boats over the weekend. A real issue. And for me, whether it's Nigel Farage, Keir Starmer, whoever, is anybody able, willing or desiring to get hold of this? This immigration disaster is not going away.
There are ways you can do it, but they're very unpalatable to people like Keir Starmer. That's the problem. That's the irony.
What are the unpalatable ways?
Well, leave the ECHR, leave the UN Refugee Convention, and basically risk a mighty row with France by basically breaking the maritime laws.
Oh, upset France. What's wrong with that?
Exactly. We've been upsetting France for 500 years.
And we're giving them 500 billion quid for absolutely jack.
And actually, actually stop the boats reaching our waters, or go into French waters and turn them back, or tow them back to France. You've just got to break the model. The Tony Abbott style in New Zealand, it doesn't take very long once you break the business model of the smugglers. When the smugglers realise they're not going to reach Britain, they're not going to be able to charge people to get them to Britain, so you only have to turn around a few of these things before you really have an impact. But to do that legally, you're going to have to leave lots of beloved institutions and cherished international programmes that this Prime Minister has devoted his entire life to serving and protecting.
Well, that's the point for people who are listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Up to 50,000 migrants across the Channel this year. Now, I've listened to all the people on the left say, you don't understand. I know I say it all the time, make no apology. People will say, you don't understand, Jez, the horrible, horrible lives these people leave behind. And I'll say what I said to Ian 15 minutes ago. If I was in a war-torn country and there were bombs raining down on my head, Harry, I'd bring my wife and kids first. The first place I got to when I didn't have to wear a tin helmet, I'd think that's nice and I'd settle down.
Yeah.
The reason, I think the way to deter migrants in this country, apart from turning back boats, is to make us less bleeding soft. We offer far too much. And my goal, and where Nigel Farage, I think, would win the election, is if he said to the British people, actually, I'm putting you first. That is not racist. It is not wrong to say to people who've paid in all their lives, you shouldn't be at the back of the queue. You should be at the front of the queue. What's wrong with that?
Look, I mean, that is the direction of travel that I think even the Labour Party have reached. The Tories got there way too late, but I think they reached it now. Rishi Sunak, towards the end of his premiership, was flirting openly with the idea of leaving the ECHR, which he resisted for 2 years as PM. But once he's back against the wall, that's what he had to do. The irony of this Prime Minister, the contradiction at the heart of his entire premiership is, in order to save his premiership, in order to clamp down on this, to actually achieve it, he's going to have to tear up everything he believes in. And lots of people have started to think he's not the man to do that.
Well, how can he? How is he? Look, Max in Bristol, our Navy are employed to defend our beaches and our country. So how can they refuse to stop this mass invasion from unknowns, which must include terrorists and criminals? I heard somebody earlier say, oh, they're not all terrorists and criminals. But you have to ask yourself, I'm not saying they are, but why are they coming here? Because they can take advantage of how lax we are.
If you look at some of those pictures from over the weekend, those crammed boats, not a single woman or child in them. No. These are working-age people.
It's got to tell you
something. The French are saying, well, it's because of the French. The French. Well, they kind of have a point on one minor thing.
The French blame Brexit for Channel migrant crossings. Give us the £500 million back, then, right?
They don't. They blame the fact that it is very easy in this country to work illegally, where it's actually quite hard to do it on the continent.
I blame the fact that they encourage them to get in boats and push them out to sea to come here.
But the reason that people don't want to stay in France and they want to come here is because our black economy, our cash economy, is still much stronger. Whereas in France, you need to turn up, in large parts of the continent, to turn up to work, to be even paid, you have to have an ID card. Yeah. And if you don't have an ID card, it's on the employer. It's on the employer who's paying, who gets screwed over. Whereas here, it's quite easy to people. They come, they put them up in a hotel for a couple of weeks. Oh look, they've absconded. Where have they gone? Yeah. Drive around any car wash. Drive around any car wash in any major city.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, but the fact is, try selling that now to the British people.
I think the Rubicon's being crossed on that point. Yeah.
And people say to me, "Well, what are you saying?" What I'm saying is it's not uncharitable or wrong to say, if you've paid your way and you expect the basic treatment from your society, if other people who don't get that, I'm not talking about people taking to the streets, but people are fed up to the back teeth. They are genuinely fed up. And also,
when we keep being told there's no money for this, there's no money for defence, there's no money for...
But there is for migrants.
That's the thing. It's very hard for the government to keep credibility and to keep the faith of the people and keep the trust of the people who are paying the taxes in the first place and paying their way, who can't afford, to live where they want to, can't perhaps afford to have more children or any children they'd like to because times are tough. What really annoys them, and not even, it's even a left-right issue, it's just a right-wrong issue, is, well, if there's no money, why are we spending £7 billion a year on hotels? And it's a little bit the same with the international aid argument. Well, if there's no money, why are we spending £15 billion on all of these projects we've spoken about before a lot in the past, all this sort of wasteful, ridiculous spending in other countries, until a government, any government of any colour or stripe, manages to solve this problem, you're going to make, there is an inherent, you're completely correct, Jeremy, an inherent unfairness in the system that is eroding trust and belief in our politics.
And there's also this inherent belief, I think, which is it's a bit like you can't criticise, you weren't able to criticise the NHS because it's this revered thing. Well, it doesn't work. There's this thing about how Great Britain, and I've listened to all those activists, I watch them and they go, the thing is, you know, we're very lucky in the UK and we need to make sure we show the world that we are the best and we will treat you. These are the people who think we should be apologising for the next 5,000 years about
and
what
the last
happened.
yeah, exactly.
Right? But here's my point. I think you get to a really important moment, which is, I feel now, which is you can do all that if you can afford it. But if you are doing that to the detriment of services, support, help to your own people, I don't hear any of these activists talking about Beryl in Bury who can't see a doctor, but they talk about a bloke who's going to arrive on a beach because apparently he's had to leave a water. I'd like them to speak to Beryl and say, do you know what, love, thanks for 50 years of paying your stamp, sod you, you're not worth jack. That's what I want to see from a politician.
The luxury beliefs that lots of men
we're not rich anymore, we're skint.
The country's broke. Look at the argument that Rachel Reeves is having today. The government got themselves into a right old mess again today because they've announced all of these great big fanfare. Oh, it's going to be the greatest package of defence uplifting anyway. We're going to build missiles and we're going to rearm the country and we're going to have new planes with nukes on them. Yeah, fine. But the people who came up with this report that's published today, this Integrated Defence Review, which was sort of nearly a year's worth of work, they said, the three authors of that report said, everything in this report is premised on the fact that we're going to be spending 3% of GDP by the middle of the next decade. Now, Starmer pops up today and says, oh yeah, I'm sure we will.
Ambition.
As ambition. I have no doubt that we will. But what's actually happening is the same arguments are going on in government because, as you say, we're broke. The Treasury have said, this is mental, we can't afford this, we're going to send a massive signal to the international markets if we just announce we're going to spend this without actually showing how we're going to, what we're going to cut, where the money's going to come from. So the Treasury appear to have won the day, actually, but they've been already scheduled to announce this great report. So they've got themselves into a right old mess. Yeah.
The government. Let's do a call very quickly. Let's go to Shropshire. Bob, you're on Talk Drive. Jez and Harry here. What do you want to say, pal?
1,200 migrants on a Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah. All of fighting age, so we're told. That's a battalion of men. A battalion. It wouldn't take many days for them to have more fighting men than we've got in our whole army.
Well, the point of that, there's 150,000 people have now crossed the channel on a boat. Yeah. And there's only 70,000 people, or 69,000 people in the British Army. I mean, do the math. For every migrant that's crossed the boat, there's one soldier.
Bob, question for you. I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you think I'm barking mad. Harry's far more balanced than me. But I just keep going back to the fact that we're too soft, we make it too easy, we make it too welcoming, and we're screwing our own people at the same time. What's your thought on that?
I just think we should be turning them around before they leave the French waters and push them back into France and let the police there deal with them. Instead of taking photographs of them, they should be arresting them and taking them back into France, out of the way.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, my friend. Dave College says no fish if no returns.
Well, you'd think, right? You'd think that, you know, what do the French want from us? They want our fish. They want unfettered access to our waters.
You're not having our fish unless you keep your migrants. That's what I'd say.
Well, unless they start putting their finger out, they're not going to do it. But the French have gone, no.
They do what? Oh, let's slap him. Did you see him get collared by his missus on the plane, Macron?
I did see that.
Wow.
See, even you and your campsite, your mysterious campsite.
Don't say camping that way. What I love was Trump's response. Did you see Trump? They asked him and he said, "That's right. Close the door."
Yeah, I've spoken to them. I'm fine. They're lovely people.
Rob and Lynn Ramsden. I don't give a fig what Starmer believes in. He said the government for the people, not the party. So why does he not do what we all want? Stop the bleeding migrants. The man doesn't want to make it better. That's the assumption. And the reality is for Keir Starmer, he sat there in opposition for years, quite rightly in the end criticising the Tories. They've got no plan, and you are absolutely right. And it came out in that article today. And just going back to your amazing article in The Sun today about Farage. For me, Farage can actually be the next Prime Minister if he lays out stuff. I don't think he has to promise the earth.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to be squeaky clean, perfect, I'm not going to make a mistake. In fact, I think Trump has proved that you can stand in front of people and go, look, warts and all, I'm going to make mistakes. There'll be good days and bad days, but it'll be a journey. My belief is I want to deal with this and deal with that. Come with me on it. That's all people want.
I think, frankly, after COVID, after Truss, after now this government, no one actually believes these sums anyway. It's all it's all predicated by, there's all hand to mouth, budget to budget, OBR report to OBR report. Actually, the state of the nation's finances, as you made the point, is basically we're broke. Yeah. No one really believes these numbers. No. Everyone thinks that tax is probably going to go up again.
And it will.
And it will. Well,
we're basically screwed. Let's all move to Dubai. Yeah. Let's finish with a nice story. Well, I say nice, bound to send me over the edge. Are you ready for this?
Oh, God.
Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, she's about 11, isn't she, has set sail for Gaza in a bid to break the Israeli blockade. Ms. Thunberg, a vocal opponent of Israel's war on Gaza, boarded the ship Madeleine with 11 other activists, including Liam Cunningham, the Game of Thrones actor, and the European parliamentarian Rima Hassan. They left Sicily with the aim of reaching Gaza's shores and drawing attention to the sight and the plight, rather, of civilians. I don't want to get into Gaza. I'll simply say this. This is a diesel-powered boat, for Christ's sake. What a load of old crap. Honestly, it's diesel-powered.
Greta's journey as well. It's just so cliched, isn't it? I mean, she's gone from the annoying little truant to lecturing people at the UN about climate, and now she's a pro-Palestinian Gaza flag waver. And it just shows you just how vacuous all of that nonsense is. It's the protest for protest's sake. What does she even actually know about any of this? She's a rent-a-crowd, rent-a-gob, bandwagon jumping, irritating little twerp.
Fantastic, and I couldn't have put it better myself, which in fact why we employ him. The legendary Harry Cole, and just if you get a chance, go online and read that in The Sun. Nigel Farage told me the exact moment he decided to run for PM.
Page 10.
Page 10, Harry Cole. I must say, you're looking a lot sharper than you did in that photo, Cole.
I better get a new byline picture. I've been to the gym today.
Have you? Why?
Yeah, because yes.
I went for a coffee and a fag. 4:24. You were Talk Drive. Back in 3. I'm off for a wee.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
27 Monday afternoon, we're live across the UK. This is JK on Drive, on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. And please be involved, because when you do, it gives me so much more time to work out what the hell's coming next. 0344 499 1000. Our Jodie back from her, well, trip to Greece with Ryan. I'm not saying any more. Ask her when you ring. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. She's shaking her head. I hear she was shaking a lot more in Greece. What the hell am I on? Listen, if you want to text us, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Zia Youssef, chairman of Reform UK, will be on this show at 5 o'clock. I'm just thinking, if you've got a question, I mean, people are talking about how Reform could be the next government. He's talking about how they're going to change Kent County Council. They're going to send all these people in and they're going to get rid of wasteful spending, a bit like Elon Musk did for Trump. What do you want to ask Sir Youssef? Text your question, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Jez, my daughter got laid off work. Her rent is nearly 700 quid a month for a one-bedroom flat in Sheffield, and she can now not get help with the rent. She will get £350 of universal credit, although she's worked. She said she would have been better off getting on a boat and coming to the United Kingdom. She was also told if she had a child, they would pay all her rent. Jesus Christ. She's 25 and has been working for 7 years. Life is unfair. Couldn't agree more. Dennis in Manchester, good afternoon. Apparently, the country is so broke, the Strategic Defence Review has recommended that in order to save money, our soldiers in any future way will be expected, or even war, will be expected to go up to the enemy with a wooden stick and shout bang. Great show as a... Not, you know, you might laugh at Dennis in Manchester. I think he might be right. Rachel, hello. Why did I say it like that? The government want to get people waiting for treatments for mental health conditions back to work immediately. Patients are told they face years on waiting lists. Yes, we have to watch over 1,000 people arrive in this country, and there's all this stuff. Graham Haitley, or is it Hartley? No idea. Greta, they should let her through the blockade, but not let her out again. See how she likes it. Margaret. Hello, Margaret. Starmer's useless. Really? Yeah. Going down in history as the worst PM ever. Why do we have to wait another 4 years of this crap government? Get a grip, Starmer, and stop the bloody boats. Well, he's not going to. And I'll tell you what, Harry Cole, I keep saying it, great article in The Sun today, page 12, makes the point. How is Starmer, who spent his entire life going, you know, human rights, ACHR, let's make sure everybody's fine, even if it's to the detriment of my own people. The only way he can sort this migrant crisis is by tearing up everything he believes in. And if he doesn't, he's going to be screwed anyway. I love it. Cliff in Berkshire, how does Greta make her money? Not for me to say. Maybe she does TikTok. 4:30. Delighted with our next guest. Oh, look at that. Breaking news. Oh. A 48-year-old man has been arrested at Stansted Airport this afternoon on a suspicion of conspiracy to commit arson, becoming the fourth man held in attacks on 2 properties and a car linked to our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. I've been told by my producer not to say a word, just to read it out. That's 4 men then. 0344 499 1000, 4:30. A very good afternoon. When I come back from holiday, I was looking forward to this. James Price, hello.
How are you, my friend? Are you well?
What are you doing? You've got a tie. You know, where are... Oh, my God. Where are you? What's the sheet behind?
Well, this is... I'm not in the normal spot. I'm in the Adam Smith Institute office today in Westminster, putting a bit of stick about and trying to get some people to love freedom again, which is in short supply around in Westminster. And
also, you know me, I'm always straight to the point, and you've a sense of humour. You wore the sunglasses a bit much in the sun, didn't you? Because you look like you've still got them on your bleeding face.
Do you know there was a Tory MP who lost his seat last year called Robert Courts.
Yes.
And he was a pretty good minister. I think he followed David Cameron, and he did some interviews just after a bank holiday Monday with the reddest face imaginable and the lines cut out here. And it's clearly the guy had fallen asleep in the garden on bank holiday Monday, and I think, you know what, that's the kind of normal bloke I want being a member of Parliament. It was excellent to see.
He's heading to Parliament, James Price. James, you and me, always to the point. The UK is moving to a war footing. What cost? Sir Keir Starmer today unveiling the government's long-awaited Strategic Defence Review. He says, I am committed to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, and I've set out an ambition, yeah, of course you have, to hit 3% by 2034, by which time you won't be in power. Paul Johnson, director of a think tank, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, I don't really know what that means, says the only way this is achievable is to raise taxes. So we have a Prime Minister, OK, who has been dragged to the table to increase defence spending because he's been forced into saying it, who said there won't be tax rises, who's now in a pickle over this despite him there in his jacket looking like he knows what he's talking about. Yet another mess. It's not going to happen, is it?
No, of course it's not going to happen. I mean, first of all, by the way, just a quick pop at the Institute for Fiscal Studies. It's not the only way to pay for it by raising taxes. We could cut spending in other ways. I know that is absolutely
foreign aid
to anybody who's ever been in government. Or perhaps, you know, get growth going again, and we could have more growth going around that we could then start taxing. Of course, politicians don't like to think about that either, because they tend, especially the socialist ones, tend to think that growth and profits are an evil word rather than, you know, the basis of all civilization itself. So that's not quite right. But what we definitely do need to do is to increase defence spending. At the moment, it's absolutely pitiful, and we need to get to a position where we are funding the kind of defence that Britain needs, not the kind of defence that the Treasury thinks that it can afford to face, because Russia and China and Iran, and unfortunately all of the enemies that we have let in recent years, they don't seem to worry about Treasury forecasts. They just want to do harm to us, and we need to be here to counter it.
And of course, there's the thing. People keep saying in this country, we're going to have to cut this and we're going to have to cut that. We can't have a defence, we can't have an army, and all that because we're skinned. But we're finding £7 or £8 billion a year. There's the thing. We're on a war footing. So what I'm going to do if I'm Keir Starmer is I'm going to make sure that I defend you against Russia, whilst allowing over 50,000 migrants to come on boats to the United Kingdom. And for all the people who are now going to text and go, Jez, come on, these are people who deserve a chance. I don't care whether they deserve a chance or not. Bring your wife and kids, work. Honestly, Jay, I don't understand it. He's talking about a defence review and protecting our nation, and yet another government with absolutely no plan about dealing with the biggest issue in this country right now, which is how people are coming to this country, not even how they're getting here, not even how soft we are. The fact is, British people are saying they're getting more than us. How does that work?
Look, it's completely insane to start talking a big scary game against Russia and against China and all the rest, where, as you say, we're letting in this number of people. And these people, I've said it to you before, I'm going to keep saying it even though it upsets people, are largely people on the small boats from alien cultures who will find it very hard to integrate, even if they wanted to, because of the backward views that a lot of the world has about women and gay people and human rights and free speech and democracy and all these sorts of things. Now, I just want, if we take one thing home from our conversation today, and I would even ask people at home to pass this number on to other people in their family and to people down the pub and in the office and wherever else you go. It's the fact that since 2018, when the small boat crossings started, we've had over 150,000 people come into this country illegally. At the same time, the number of people we have in the regular forces of the British Army as of the start of April this year is 74,000 people. That means we have more than twice as many people have come over in small boats in the last few years as we have soldiers in the British Army. And we're talking about we're going to war and we're going to action stations. Pull the other one. We are not able to defend ourselves right now, let alone anything else going into the future. This needs to be fixed.
It's extraordinary. And you and I have done this for 2 years, and I've heard every politician in the world say, well, there's no answer, or there is an answer, and it might be the ECHR, and it might be that our human rights-loving left-wing Prime Minister is going to have to get rid of some of his beliefs to actually deal with this crisis. But to me, Jay, it will always be the same thing. I look at the country that we are. I think the people on the left want us to continue to apologise for the colonies, apparently, for the next 5,000 years. The truth is, we are skint. We can't afford the interest on the money that we owe. So our public services are strained to the absolute max. And what we're doing is, not only are we allowing more people in, and that's straining that still further, but my real gripe, and it will not go away, is that we seem to put those people at the front of the queue. And I will talk about Beryl in Bury until they drag me out of here, right? Why should she pay for 50 years and she can't get her knees done, which she's written to us, told us that, right? But you can arrive on a boat, get a mobile phone and a 4-star hotel, and probably you can disappear with money. It doesn't make sense to people, right? And when all those lefties go, you don't know how hard it is for these people. How hard is it for Beryl? What does she think about this? Because people laugh when I use this woman, but there's a relevance to it, right? Which is the British people have had enough of having to be placed at the back of the queue. Genuinely believe that, pal. Genuinely.
Yeah, you're completely right. And so why is it? Why is this the case? Well, the reason it is that the thicket of bad laws that have grown up in this country in the last few decades, a lot of them inspired by this bogeyman, the ECHR, but it is a bogeyman for a reason, and that we put into our domestic laws, people like Tony Blair's Human Rights Act of 1998, the idea that we didn't have any human rights in this country until Tony Blair came along. And they obviously don't have any human rights in Canada or New Zealand or Australia because they don't have the ECHR or the Human Rights Act. Obviously, it's complete rot. But it says that you have to treat these people in this way. And Dominic Cummings over the weekend, might not be everybody's cup of tea, but he's clearly someone who's had access at the very highest levels, said something completely incendiary. And he's right about this. And he said that the Prime Minister has to choose between the ECHR and actually stopping these sorts of issues. You can't have both, because as things currently stand, with the law as it currently stands and is enforced by the civil service, you would have to arrest the Prime Minister for breaking the ECHR and the Human Rights Act and things like that if he actually ordered the Royal Navy to stop the boats, which operationally the Navy say would be very easy to do. That's the kind of cracker situation we're in. And the only politician who has been honest about this was Robert Jenrick, who quit the government when he heard that Rishi Sunak wasn't willing to do the kinds of changes that would need to fix this. There's your big problem. And by the way, this kind of statutory requirement is why things are so bad in so many other areas as well. So for local councils, about 2/3 of all of their spending is again mandated by law already, and it has to be all spent on social care. And so when you talk about Zia Youssef wanting to get a Doge into all these councils, it's a question I'd like him to answer. That you're not going to get very much cut unless you start changing those big acts of parliament that mandate the kind of spending you've got to do. Meanwhile, of course, Reform wants to lift the two-child benefit cap so that Beryl and you and me and everybody else listening has to pay more for people's extra children they can't themselves afford to raise, and that's not right either. And
well, I will put that to him very quickly because I'm going to take a call. Interesting to say, the French have blamed Brexit for the migrants. Did you like that impression? It was crap, wasn't it? Some French politician has blamed Britain's decision to quit the EU for the surge in migrants crossing the Channel. Eleanor Carrot, a member of the President Emmanuel Macron's party. It's a bit of a slap in the face. That was crap, but I thought I'd do it. That person's blaming leaving Brexit. We're giving them 500 million quid a year, right? And they actively encourage people to get in boats. They need to shut up, don't they?
Yeah, well, the boat crossing started while we were still in the European Union.
Yeah.
Before it was the boat crossings, it was people coming through the Channel Tunnel. The reason that they're coming is nothing to do with Brexit. It's not anything to do with Brexit. It's the fact that we are so soft and we give them, as you say, phones and cash and access apparently to
tent in France, 4-star hotel in Dover. That's difficult.
Exactly. Even these guys are smart enough to work out that one. Yeah. And we don't have any kind of disincentive. Again, blame Rishi Sunak for getting a bit of Rwanda legislation through and then calling the election before it happened. And definitely blame Keir Starmer for getting rid of the Rwanda scheme and now casting around in the Balkans to try and recreate that scheme somewhere else. That's what we need to be doing. A proper deterrent, both in terms of the cash and in terms of the threat to send these people somewhere they don't want to go otherwise.
Couldn't agree more. Final, very quick question. Third, I want a personal message from James Price, former special advisor, government advisor. Greta Thunberg, bless her soul, the climate activist, has today set sail for Gaza in a bid to break the Israeli blockade. She's a vocal opponent of Israel's war on Gaza. I'm not getting into that. She's boarded the ship, Madeleine, with 11 other left-wing activists. They've left Sicily with the aim of reaching Gaza's shores and drawing attention internationally to the plight of civilians on the Strip. James Price, your response, please, to the fact that this ship is diesel-powered. This is brilliant. It's diesel-powered.
Well, look, two things. One, I'm pro-Israel, but even I don't think the poor people of Gaza deserve to have to put up with Greta Thunberg as well as everything else. And secondly, the last time she did one of these stunts, I think the one, I'll say this advisedly, the wonderful piece of colour reporting that came out of it was that she had to poo in a bucket. So I wonder if she's doing that on her diesel ship this time as well.
There's the thought. James Price, you are a legend. Good luck with the sunburn. Keep those glasses on, my friend. 0344 499 1000. If you want to be on, what do you make? Is Starmer going to make us stronger? Are we going to have a better army and better navy and lots of, submarines with nuclear weapons? We're going to protect ourselves against Russia, although we can't afford it, but we're being invaded on a daily basis. Talk drives on.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Certainly is 10 o'clock, but from 6 as well. The legend that is Mike Graham, my mate, back with Morning Glory, the only way to wake up, live across the UK, Monday to Friday, only here on Talk, the home of common sense and free speech. After 5 o'clock, Zia Youssef, chairman of Reform UK, here to answer your questions. I'd love to hear from you. What do I ask a man who is going to send, this is true, the first Doge, have I got that right? Doge-style team into Kent County Council, you try saying that, to apparently exorcise all the excessive spending. Is this a good thing? I mean, I'd love. What do you want me to ask, Zia Youssef? 08722. Start your message with the word talk. Peter in Berkshire in a sec. First, we've got a voice note. Vince, go.
Oh, hello. My name is Keir Starmer. Hello, I'm speaking to Mr. Putin. Mr. Putin, if you're thinking of invading, can you wait till the next Parliament, please? Because we've got to build some boats and get some guns. It'd be very kind if you could wait. But as I'm Mr. Starmer, anything will happen.
I can't do a Russian accent. I will not wait. Is that Russian? I've no idea. 4:45. Peter is in Berkshire on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, mate. All right.
Slight satellite delay to your head. Let's do it again so it looks smooth and continuous. Let's go to Berkshire. Peter, you're on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, Jeremy.
Brilliant. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm happy. You sound very miserable. Is everything all right?
No, I'm fine, no.
Oh, good. What do you sound like when you're unhappy?
I've been listening to your show again, mate.
Bless you.
I mean, you do get a bit cheesed off of it all, but I think I've got a bit of an idea to stop these people coming across.
Oh, God.
I mean, first of all, we stop paying France any money. Just let them come in the boats. And what we do, we build a camp on Yorkshire Moor or Dartmoor, and that's where they go, and that's where they stay.
Yep.
We feed them, we water them, they get bed, all that, and they can stay there all the time. And if they don't like it, they can tell us where they came from, and we take them back.
Interesting. I mean, look, whole of the argument with the Tory government before was to process these people in a foreign country. We've got to a point where even the humanitarian left-wing loving Keir Starmer is now saying maybe we should process these people offshore, and if they are right and proper, they should be granted, whatever it is, citizenship, and should come, but the rest should be taken and sent home. All I ever hear is, oh, you can't send them home, the chicken nuggets aren't great, or my child might be, spat at or something. Ridiculous. I bring it back, one quick thing, whether you build camps or not, or send them to the Falkland Islands, whatever you do, am I wrong in saying, Pete, that we're getting to a point where we are putting the British people at the back of the queue, behind these migrants?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I worry for my granddaughters,
I couldn't agree more. Listen, great to have you on. 13 minutes to 5 o'clock. Back from 2 weeks holiday, rocking and rolling. Peter Youssef, chairman of Reform UK on the way. Right now, a man, a legend. I mean, honestly, and I've got to give him 15 minutes because he's got more verbal diarrhea than me. Henry Belton, international border control expert. Good afternoon, sir. How are you? What is that red tie all about, man?
Hey, look, this is African.
Oh,
elephants, giraffes, rhinos. I was born there,
Were you?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Yeah. So I've got a photo somewhere of me 2.5 years old sat on the back of a rhinoceros. There you go.
There's a thought. There's a photo somewhere of Jodie and Ryan on holiday. I'm not going into it. Anyway.
I know that sort of photo.
Yeah, I know. We've seen it. Henry, welcome. Listen, I think most people, and I know you have a military background as well, are sort of saying today, I'm going to say they're up in arms. This is the day that our Prime Minister has insisted that he will increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, and he has an ambition, of course he does because he won't be in power, to make it 3% by 2034. So we're going to have dozens of nuclear-powered attack submarines, £15 billion investment in the sovereign nuclear warhead programme, all of this, and yet many people, thousands of people, are saying, but we're going to allow our country to continue to be invaded. And in fact, we were given a stat by James Price, which I want to put to you. Since 2018, 150,000 migrants illegally have entered this country, 150,000, which is already twice the number of people in the British Army. What an absolute joke, HB.
No, indeed, and it's what 2,000 in the last 10 days. Well, probably over 2,000 in the last 10, 11 days or so. The rate is increasing. I predicted that it would increase because all you have to do is look at the flow across the central Mediterranean route, which then sort of proportionally feeds through. You know, it takes a while for them to move, but there's always a sort of fairly steady proportion of those people crossing the Mediterranean and the other routes, the sort of the Balkan route into the European Union. So, you know, because they come from up through Spain and from West Africa, they come across North Africa and the Mediterranean to Italy, Malta, and so on. And then they also come up through Turkey and the Balkans. So the sort of, and also to a lesser extent that these days, because of the war in Ukraine, through Eastern Europe. So you've got that flow, but the Central European route into the Central European sort of Union, sort of across the Mediterranean, that feeds through to a sort of latent effect on the North French coast and the Channel. And if you look at that, then you can see that you can predict an increase. Well, that increase has been entirely predictable. We've put no additional resources in place to address it. Which means it tells me that the government and the authorities responsible for this have not actually predicted it, which tells me that they are simply not functioning correctly. Well, I know they're not anyway, but there's evidence for you. James was entirely right that the numbers are huge, massive, but we're still not having any positive effect in reducing that flow of boats across the Channel. I'm glad that now more and more people, including James, but other people, and as you said just now, even the government is starting to get the message that we need to deal with the pull factor. These people arrive and, you know, in a very liberal, British sort of liberal sort of, you know, come and have tea and biscuits type of approach, very, very naive. These people have actually been, that whole attitude towards these Channel migrants has been an actual factor in the pull.
Right, I'll tell you what you do, because he's shouting at me. I want you to hang over the break and stay with me till 5. Is that all right? Henry Bolton after this break on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, JK on Drive, back from his holiday. You lucky people. What do you want to talk about? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Ian says they could, of course, process the boat people in the Chagos Islands. Oh, no, that's another $9 billion down the Swanee. Henry Bolton, international borders expert with me. On a serious note, we've talked repeatedly about what should be done. In simplistic terms, you said something before the break that I think is so important. It's the pull effect. It's what I've been talking about forever. We can talk about turning boats around. We can talk about getting out of the ECHR. That'll be fun with how left-wing and human rights loving our PM is. The fact of the matter is, Henry, this country, in my mind, makes it so easy, so affordable, so attractive to people. And that's gone on forever because apparently we have to apologise for being the worst nation in the world for the next 5,000 years. But for me, we've reached a point where the British people are now at the back of the queue because of that, and that's why people are objecting massively. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do, entirely. They're being ignored. The British public has been ignored in a number of elections, not least the referendum, where a lot of the vote has been because of immigration. Yeah. And it's not just the pressure on housing, on public services, and the effect on the rule of law, antisocial behaviour, knife crime, gang crime, and all the rest of that, which has all been contributed to by immigration, both legal and illegal, and a failure to integrate. But in addition to that, it's the effect on people's communities and culture. There is an organisation that people won't have heard about. I think we've talked about it before, the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe. It's the world's largest diplomatic security organisation. It deals with conflict prevention. And one of the fundamentals of that is what they call environmental security. But it's not simply sort of the environment as in climate and pollution and so on. It's about the environment in which people live. If they are subjected to massive cultural change too quickly, then people feel insecure, they start to get aggressive, defensive, and it can lead to internal conflict. And of course, the phase towards that is tension, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, understandably, an entirely human reaction to people's culture, their environment, their communities, their streets, and their schools and everything changing beyond recognition just about within just a handful of years. And that is, again, entirely predictable. It's a factor that has not been calculated for in any government policy that I can see. And, we have got a perfect storm brewing. If the British government does not act, and as we've said many times before, Jeremy, there are ways to deal with this. If it doesn't act, if it doesn't find the will to engage on this problem, then it is going to get worse in every conceivable respect. And that worries me. It worries me deeply. And it frustrates me and makes me angry, as it does everybody else.
I couldn't agree more. And I think we haven't got long, but do me a favour, as simplistic as you can, because you are a genius at this. For people listening, and you've got 1 minute, what needs to be done in basic layman's terms? Make it less attractive to be here. Certainly leave the ECHR, right?
Yeah, you've got to leave the ECHR to enable you to do other things. This is something you can put to Zia later. Reform want to leave the ECHR to stop the boats. Well, talk me through the various stages between leaving the ECHR and stopping the boats. Now, of course, it removes obstacles to dealing with the pull factor. It makes it enables you to make it a more harsh environment. But part of that, as you were saying and James was saying earlier, and it's catching on, thank God, is that once these people arrive in the UK, if they get that far, then you have to detain them. We don't know who they are. Some of them we know present a security risk and a risk to public safety. We must securely detain them behind wire, ideally on somewhere like the Ascension Island, where it's not in the UK. It's not associated with the UK in their minds. They're halfway around the world. You will start then, if you are robust about that, you will send a very clear message. You are damn well not welcome here if you try to enter illegally, and you will go back or you'll sit on an island in the mid-Atlantic. Fine, your choice. But we've got to have the political will to do it and the knowledge and to do it. And I don't see any political party. Some of them are moving that way. who's actually there yet. I just don't see it.
Listen, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. I will put that to Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform, is on After the News. Henry Bolton, International Border Control Expert. Thank you very much indeed. Jez, how about France keeps the migrants and the UK keeps the fish in the English Channel? Very good, Jez. I don't know who that's from. How much is Greta Thunberg's trip to Gaza costing? What's she going to do when she gets there? Tell Hamas off? Probably not. Mick, no, I'm not doing that. We'll do that when I say. Listen, if you want to put a question to Pierre Youssef, see ya. Show. 87222, start your message with the word talk. The Chairman of Reform, a guest on Talk Drive after the news. What do you want to ask him? Whatever. Today he's announced a Doge-style task force will be sent to Kent County Council that Reform now run to get rid of wastage and spending. Do you think Reform can be the next government? 87222, start your message with the word talk and those calls. 0344 499 1000. News at 5 is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back, couple of minutes after 5. Hour 2 of day 1 of drive time. Back from our holes. Welcome along. Listen, it's true. There's so much to talk about, but as ever, the show is only and it always should be about you. 3 ways to contact us. 0344 499 1000. You can ring on that number. Our Judy taking your calls. You can text, of course, 87222. Start your message with the word talk, or you can leave a voice note via WhatsApp on that same number, 0344 499 1000. Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform UK, on the way. Loads of you texting. Jez, we have a Prime Minister, says Sharon, who has never lived in the real world and is still holding on to his fantasies. Really? He will come down to earth at some point and he will be finished. I think most people agree with you, Shaz. Brad's in Cambridge. Hello, Brad. Welcome back, Jez. Surely it must be absolutely clear to everyone by now that the French and the EU have only one aim in mind since we left the EU: to punish us and deter any other country from leaving. That's why they won't help with the boats. Do you know what, Brad? Do you know what? You're the first person that said that, and I've thought that for a long time. I could not agree with you anymore. Paulie Young, good afternoon. Jez, I agree with James Price. We do not want to be paying for other people's children. No. If you can't afford them, don't have them. No. I've heard people say, I don't want to go to work, so have another child. That should be a cap. There should be a cap. I can't afford everything I want, but I don't expect anyone else to pay for it. Couldn't agree more. Barry, afternoon, Jez. As a veteran, I weep tears of frustration at the state of our country. I think about the friends lost and beginning to feel that perhaps they are the lucky ones. Jesus, what does that tell you? Right, what does that say? It just worries me so much. 0344 499 1000, 4 minutes past 5. Zia Yusuf on the way. Ahead of that, some calls. We'll go to Derby. Simon, you're on Talk Drive. A very good afternoon. How are you?
Thanks, Jeremy. Great. Hope you had a nice holiday.
Well, apart from standing in a field with a bucket for a shower whilst my kids went, let's go glamping, Daddy. I don't think it was as raunchy or as fun as my two colleagues who went to an island in Greece without their partners together, but that's another story altogether.
Anyway, try to get to the point. I think we need to try and get control of this migrant situation.
God, so do I.
And I know it's a prickly one, but at the end of the day, these people, they come across, they haven't got a price of a cup of tea when they come over. No. They've got nothing. So my question is, how are they affording to pay these boat mafia guys? Well, they can't. Obviously, they come over. 75% of them are going to get granted asylum. So my theory is what we should do is give them we'll pay them to come over, right? So we'll cut out all these mafia people with trying to screw everybody, and we'll pay them to come over, and these people will be given a national insurance number. They'll be put to work, and we'll put an attachment to their earnings, and they pay us back until they finish paying their dues. Nothing's free in this world, and that's what they should do. They're going to come anyway, so why not, But
you see, I'm not trying to have an argument with you, as Jodie. You're all right, Jode? Yep. Just coming to the studio on her knees. How was your holiday?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I bet it was. Simon, on a serious note, right, I would fight against what you've just said for one simple reason. They're going to come anyway. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. I think that we have to face up to the fact that that is not acceptable, and it is not wrong to say that is unacceptable. I'm not talking, we proved it with Ukraine, I've said it to people too, I'm blue in the face. We have proven that as a country we will look after people who are genuinely escaping conflict. But we know, don't we, that these young men leave behind their families, they come to this country and they don't pay their way. And when all the activists, and I understand it to a degree, are saying, but you don't understand. No, I haven't been in Ukraine, but I sure as eggs is eggs know, right? That the most of the young men that come on boats and drop their passports and leave their wives and kids apparently behind in a bomb-ridden place, absolute rubbish, don't want to stay in France. They want to come here because we are softer, and the pull factor of the United Kingdom means that they will. And I just think when you are skint as we are, when your own people are I'm going to say suffering, and the activists will jump up and down, but when people can't get the services that perhaps they feel they should for paying into, then I think you've got a problem, and I think that's where we're at. And I think you need a politician with the balls to say, I'm not being horrible, I'm putting my own people first. I will take genuine people, but I'm going to create a system that says, if you are trying to con us, we're not going to hide behind some left-wing rubbishy rule. You ain't coming in. End of.
Well, I prefer the tough love approach myself anyway, but because there's so many liberal lovies out there, you get shot down before you even try to think about something like that.
But when you say that, right, you've got me now. When you say that, is it because I'm about to be 60? I don't give a toss if they want to shoot.
I'm 60, I'm 66.
Well, if they want to shoot me down, what, because they don't like what I'm saying? I don't like what they're saying, so why should I just shut? I'm going to be shut up because apparently, I don't understand.
Well, let's put it on a line here. I mean, the Navy wouldn't put them back because of hurty people. We can't. They might get hurt. Well, what the British? I tell you what, we had people. We say in Dunkirk, they went across in landing craft, put them in bloody landing crafts, and say, "There you go, matey, off at the end of the beach." Our boys did it when we were saving France's backside from the Germans.
Mate, I agree, and I'll tell you, there will be people that will listen to this and go, "Oh, the rhetoric there's wrong." I am not in any way, right, saying anything other other than if you cannot give me a politician or a political party that cannot stand in front of the British people and say, right, this is unacceptable. Legal migration, yes, it's happened. It can still be very useful in certain instances. But unless we as a country stop apologising for stuff that's too far gone, and we've apologised for long enough, unless we make it less attractive for these young men without their families, I repeat, to come into this country and basically take advantage, the British people are going to have a say in this. That's all I'm saying. Simon in Derby, thank you very much indeed. More calls than a tick, but I've been promising you for the last half an hour. Delighted. I met him once. He hasn't been on the show. Chairman of Reform UK, Zia Yusuf. A very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. Very well. How are you?
Oh, God. Well, I'd been off on holidays here, you see, and I thought I'd come back and I'd be all calm, and then I come back to this debacle again. On the day our Prime Minister announces that we are, what's he say? I'm going to increase defence spending to 2.5% by 2027. I've an ambition to make it more by 2034, by which time I won't be in power, so I don't frankly really give a toss. This is the same man who, hiding behind all that he hides behind, the left-wing rhetoric of the human rights lawyer, is allowing our country, and I don't care if you don't like it, to be invaded on a daily basis. 50,000 migrants. I just wanted to put something to you to start. We were told just now that since 2018, 150,000 illegal migrants here have come to this country. We've only got 74,000 in the British Army. What would Reform do about this genuinely, day one?
Yeah, and so it is exactly right. That's the quite terrifying and devastating number, that the number of people, not just people here illegally, but the ones who actually crossed the channel by small boat, now meaningfully outstrip the number available to the British Army, including in the reserves. And sometimes when you would make a point like that, people claim it's hyperbolic or exaggeration. But now we have confirmation. We have confirmation that there were Iranians who came here illegally, who have now been involved in what was a foiled terror attack that would have been absolutely devastating had our security services not successfully and brilliantly stopped it. So this is a national security emergency, and you use the word invasion. Do you remember when Nigel used that word all those years ago? Do you remember the torrent of abuse that he got? And, you know, he's called it essentially a slow motion D-Day in reverse, which is exactly, I'm afraid, what it is. And it is, you know, this is why the small boats is such an emotive and animating issue for voters, because how on earth a country that spends £57 billion a year already on defence, a significant amount of that on a navy that is pretty darn formidable still, is unable to defend its borders against small boats full of unarmed, mainly men, it's about 90% men, coming from France. The only answer to the reason why is total and absolute political failure. And you are now in, you know, Dominic Cummings gave an interview, and whatever you think of Dominic Cummings, he said something that is absolutely correct. Keir Starmer is now doing he's doing a speed run, I think he used the words, speed run of what Rishi Sunak did. He basically said, this is this big problem, it's a catastrophe, it's, you know, as a national security, all of these things. He said, I'm going to solve it, but I'm not going to leave the CHI. In fact, the UK is the only country not even trying to amend. Absolutely mind-blowing.
And this belief that we should hold on to something that is so many, I mean, I think it's about apologists. I think it's the people who feel that we should still apologise for everything that apparently went on thousands of years ago, that we should inherently, as the British people or the UK, be giving and doing as much as we can. The problem with that is, and I keep bringing back, and I have loads of questions for you from people who've sent them in here, but just very quickly, that we should, you know, give away all this sort of stuff. The truth is, the British economy is skint. The British people are struggling, and I think they are at the end of their tether, which is why I think your party is flying high in the opinion polls, because they're saying, I've done everything right and I'm at the back of the queue and it's not fair. Let me throw some questions at you. Let's say that the Reform forms the next government. Would you use the Navy to turn the boats round, yes or no?
Absolutely, 100%. In fact, I look forward to the day it'll be one of the first calls. I gave a speech a few months ago where I said it'll be one of the first calls I think that Nigel makes based on what he says, and it'll be to the first Sea Lord of the Navy, giving a clear instruction to ensure that not a single unauthorised vessel trying to get to this country across the Channel makes it to our shores. And look, let's be clear, it'll be a humanitarian mission. We have a formidable Navy, but if you talk to people in the Navy, including senior people whom I speak to, it's crystal clear that operationally they could stop those boats extremely quickly, extremely safely. It's, you know, they do this sort of stuff all of the time. It's not an issue operationally.
So if you did that, if you did that from day one,
yeah.
Would you, in the meantime, whilst all of those, you know, leaving the ECHR and all the legal ramifications, would you detain people? Henry Bolden was talking about this for security reasons. Would that be offshore? Would that be somewhere else? Would Reform say, whilst this is going through, whilst we're beating off the ECHR, we're going to stop the boats, but we're going to deal with this influx? Yeah. Would you detain those people?
Also, there's a couple of things, right? Number one, you have to stop people wanting to pay and put money to people smugglers and coming here, right? And also, we know nothing about these people. And we know for sure. By the way, do you remember when there was a man crossing the channel and he was posting live on TikTok?
Yeah.
He posted the French Navy escorting him to the UK. That was a man who had publicly threatened a sitting member of Parliament that happens to be our leader in the form of Nigel. Do you remember that? The guy with the tattooed Kalashnikov? And the French Navy were escorting him to the UK. So number one, we've got a team working already on a whole policy agenda, because not only do we need to leave the ECHR, replace it with the British Bill of Rights, we've got to leave judges. You know, you can blame judges all you want and say they're activists, but the reality is you should leave, the politicians should leave no room for a judge, no matter how activist they are, to say that a rapist who is in this country, who's from Kenya, who's a convicted rapist, cannot be deported because he's an alcoholic and he might have a miserable time of it.
Zia, it is music to my... Listen, I know, everybody knows this. I voted Reform. I was a Tory all my life. I was fed up with it. I listened to Mike Graham in the mornings, and he has a migrant of the day. We have sat here for months, my friend, and listened to people who can genuinely use a left-wing human rights lawyer paid for by the British taxpayer say, I can't go to another country because, you know, my child won't like the chicken nuggets. People laugh at me. That's a genuine story. There was a guy... This was about 3 weeks ago. I mean, I'm not going to apologise to you, Buster. He has an illicit... It's a business in the United Kingdom where he imports and exports... Well, it's sex toys, I'm not going to lie. And he couldn't go back to the country he came from because it's not allowed under Sharia law. And I'm sat here thinking, I'm working and sitting on a bleeding train and people are paying taxes. And these left-wing judges and these lawyers are, I think, making a mockery of the British people. You must deal with those lawyers day one.
I agree, but I think that lets these awful politicians off the hook. It's such an easy thing. You know, look, how is the government losing these lawsuits when the government has a pretty cool a cheat code available to it, which is it could change the laws. You know, it's like playing a computer game against somebody and you keep losing, even though you get to control the rules of the game. People vote for politicians. They didn't vote for those judges. So as much as the judges in those cases, I think, have made appalling decisions, we've got our politicians like Nigel, like the Reform MPs that we will have, that we do have and will have a lot more of in 2029, who say, look, this is the law. What we're going to do is ensure that the rights of British citizens, if you want to talk about human rights, let's put the rights of British citizens, you know, British women to live in countries where they don't have to fear that there are convicted rapists wandering around because they can't be deported because of these insane international treaties that are weaponized against people from this country. Look, this is pretty straightforward stuff. Anyone who tells you that these things are difficult to solve is just being utterly dishonest. And they actually have to tell you it's impossible to solve because the Tories had 14 years and made this problem way worse, and Labour have thrown gasoline on what was already a fast-burning fire. So everyone understands that Nigel has talked about this for decades. It's also why Reform is the only vehicle through which this kind of change can come, because we're going to go from 5 MPs to hopefully well north of 325. I think we can get to 350 to 400 MPs, which will give us the working majority we need. That's also why we can't have a pact and a ragtag coalition with a bunch of wet Tories who are low agency, who presided over these catastrophes that we were talking about in the first
place. Let me stop you there, because I've got lots of questions.
Then we will solve these problems very quickly.
I'm not letting you go because I've got loads of questions, but I'm going to jump in on something you just said. Do you genuinely, and I've made my point, I voted for Reform and I'm delighted to have you on and I will ask you the questions that need asking. Do you genuinely believe, from where you are 4 years out with nearly 30%, do you believe that you will survive the undoubted attacks, and Harry Cole was talking this earlier, not just from the Labour Party and the Tory Party, but from the establishment, from the Blob, from the BBC, from everybody? I do, because I think the British people have had enough, and I genuinely, but do you genuinely believe that Reform can have and form the next government with the majority?
Well, the answer to that lies in the hearts and minds of the British voters, and so ultimately that question lies in whether British voters believe that reform is the answer to the challenges that face the country, whether the multi-decade track record Nigel Farage has on campaigning on these issues and changing the course of history in this country, and also whether they can see through basically vicious, made-up, largely ad hominem attacks that are entirely double standards at best. My answer to that is yes. If you look at, if there was a general election to be held tomorrow, most of the analysis of the support levels we currently have put us already on north of 350 seats. Now, sadly, we are several years away from the next general election. Are we going to be attacked by everyone? I mean, Keir Starmer just dragged the whole press up north in order to have a press conference to just slag off Nigel, apparently. It obviously backfired very badly. I mean, it was incredibly painful to watch, actually. But look, what I will tell everyone involved with reform, our volunteers, our supporters and our team, hold on to your hats. We're going to come into for one hell of a shallacking from our enemies. But yeah, I think we'll see it through. We're all in this because we're mission driven and we want to help turn this great country around.
Loads of questions for you. You've set up, we announced, the Reform announced today that's going to send its first Elon Musk-style Department of Government Efficiency Doge team into local authorities. You won Kent County Council. What do you hope to achieve by doing that?
Well, what we hope to achieve is deliver, as we already start, so many times you vote for a political party who claim they're going to do all sorts of things, and then they don't do it. And so what we committed to do as part of our local manifestos is say, look, we are going to bring in teams of extremely talented auditors, engineers, to be able to go in and look at the books and really understand where on earth all of this money is going. We're starting with Kent. They're going to go to all of the councils. They're working as volunteers. They're outstanding. They're very high caliber individuals. And look, if you take Kent, for example, they started with Kent because it's the largest budget, well north of £2 billion per year. The notion that there isn't going to be money that is being wasted on things that taxpayers would be pretty abhorred by, frankly, I think is for the birds. And so look, what we've got to do first is make sure that the data is analysed, and so that's what we're going to do. And
that's all well and good, James.
People are sick and tired of the tax burden going up all the time and money not being spent with any respect. I mean, we ultimately, as Reform, our commitment to the British people is Reform elected representatives will spend your taxpayer money as if it were their own. And I'll tell you already, I can tell you, we're finding road maintenance contracts of 27 years. 27-year road maintenance contract. I mean, even Elon Musk's SpaceX contracts are
I'm not
27 years.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but James Price made a really important point earlier, and I want to put it to you. It's very difficult locally to cut waste because budgets are set by central government. So you're not going to be able to just go into these. I mean, whether you take, is it Elon Musk you taking to Kent by any chance? Is that why he's resigned from Trump?
Not he's a UK tech entrepreneur. He's 28. He's awesome. He's very successful. And he's a volunteer and he's put together a great team.
Can you tell us his name?
Yeah, his name is Nathaniel Freed. He built a company called Turgensec, which was seeded by the British government. He sold that company to US private equity. Again, he's motivated by the mission. He is a second-generation immigrant. He is a patriot. And he's got a team of pretty weapons-grade engineers, forensic auditors, etc. And by the way, our inbox has absolutely blown up since we announced all of this stuff, saying, we want to help, we want to help. There's so many patriotic people who are so just refreshed that a political party and a bunch of politicians, and we've got a brilliant leader in the form of Lyndon Concaran down there in Kent, who actually want to help turn the council around. I just want to address that point, though, just because, yes, the majority of the budget is statutory. These are services that must be provided. That is true. So number one, what's the answer there? You just hand wave it. You say, yeah, keep raising taxes endlessly on people. Just because a council is compelled to provide a service doesn't mean that you can't look at how contractors who are being paid to provide that service are providing it. So look, if, for example, over the last couple of years, there's been confirmed, and this is not speculative, this is before Reform's time, millions of pounds of confirmed fraud, where, for example, taxi companies involved in taking SEND children to school, invoicing for journeys that never happened. You know, a whole racket that happened around parking passes. So what we need to do is work out where this money is going. You know, for example, there's taxpayer money being spent on paying for asylum seekers to get free driving lessons. Yep. And again, to your point, there's people listening to this right now who are busting a gut, working, setting their alarm clocks dead early in the morning, some of them working 2 jobs, and they are paying for their own driving lessons. And so this is what really grates with people, this huge sense of unfairness. And frankly, I think for too many years now, the incredibly kind, open-hearted, warm-spirited nature of the British people has now been just taken advantage of.
Completely agree with you. But this Doge task force, I mean, you look at it and you go, great idea, similar to what's happening to Trump. And you know, I've quoted Trump on many occasions. There's many things I don't like about it, but what he's done 1,000,000% is say to the American people, that's what I'm going to do. And he's bloody well gone and done it. I remember saying about a week after the inauguration speech, CNN or some ridiculous channel played a footage of these people at the Mexico border crying. And this woman was going, there's no point in trying. He won't let us in. And I'm going, yes, because that's what he damn well said. So I've got a question. This is from Jeremy Kyle to Zia Yusuf, right? We've talked about local councils, Doge. I think it's a great idea. Let's talk about the blob. I said this to Tice over a beer, right? There's 10,000 civil servants in Whitehall. I think in all my time of doing this, the thing that caused me to almost fall off my chair was when, and at this point I didn't agree with Rwanda, okay, but a bunch of civil servants in the Home Office used taxpayers' money 2 years ago, 18 months ago, to take a democratically elected government to court because they didn't like a policy that a democratically elected government was trying to get through. And you think to yourself, come on, the blob, these civil servants, too much power. What will reform genuinely do about the power of the civil service from day one?
Well, that's a huge piece of work that is already underway. I'm not going to claim we already have the answer, but we have brilliant people already working on that. It's going to take time for us to put together, you know, when Nigel wins, which is obviously the goal, we want Nigel to be the Prime Minister, reform with a meaningful working majority. We want to have not just the policies ready, we want to have the bills ready.
Yep.
We want to be able to put sweeping legislation. I think Nigel's first term will be the most transformative first term of any Prime Minister since Margaret Thatcher by some distance, partly because as awful a state as the country was in when she came into Downing Street, it's going to be orders of magnitude more challenging by the time this god-awful Labour government are turfed out.
A couple more from Lucy. Please ask Sia what reforms plans are for the NHS. I think the social insurance model is a good idea, although I would probably pay as I have savings.
Yeah, look, again, there's a large work stream that's going on as we speak with regards to the NHS. Both my parents worked in the NHS and still do, actually. They're on 50 years of service to it. I've heard firsthand through my mum, who's a nurse, my dad, who's a doctor, all of the horror stories about how hard it is for frontline clinicians to actually do their jobs. There's not enough medicines, the rotas are not done properly so everyone can get bank pay. There's so many problems inside the NHS, which is why, as much as it's dear to all of our hearts, we have to ask why, compared to a decade ago, the cost per person in terms of the taxpayer has gone up by about 50%, adjusted for inflation, and yet waiting lists have gone up sevenfold. How does that work? You know,
well, you could answer that by saying that it's almost a micro view of the United Kingdom. Perhaps people are using the NHS who shouldn't be using the NHS and are taking advantage of it.
Over the last decade, well north of 7.2 million foreign-born people have registered with GPs, and the notion that that is not a meaningful driver why people listening to this struggle to get GP appointments is for the birds.
Absolutely. Matt says, what will reform do to help with knife crime in the area of Leicester and more importantly across the UK? Because the idiot who runs London's done nothing about knife crime. It's an absolute disgrace. We've talked about should there be stop and search. I think so. I think there should be stronger sentences. You're caught with a knife, you go to prison. I mean, all we hear about, what was it? There was an amnesty from Keir Starmer where if you took a knife, a zombie knife, you get a tenner. You'd imagine being stopped by the police here and going, "That's all right. I'm on my way to the police station to get £10." These knives are ruining people's lives. What would reform do?
Jerry, I'm going to answer this and I'm going to love you and leave because I've got another media commitment. But I will say the answer to that is absolutely stop and search. And probably mandatory minimum sentences for carrying a deadly weapon. And so we all know, look, anyone who claims stop and search doesn't work is utterly dishonest. And the only reason, so you can look at it cross-culturally across the world, whether it's America where there's a gun problem, or other countries where there are deadly weapons in terms of knives, if you deploy stop and search in a smart, effective way, it puts an end to the problem. But here's the reason why no politician will do it, because they're cowards, because they're worried that they'll be accused of being racist. And what they forget in that when they're faced with such an accusation is that, yes, if you deploy stop and search, people from certain minority groups are often disproportionately stopped by a polite police officer, you know, for about a minute or so. But what they forget to mention is that the blood that soaks the streets as a result of the violence and the murders, as a result of those deadly weapons, is invariably that same ethnic minority. And if you speak to, as I did, you know, a Somali mother who almost lost her son as a result of a machete attack. Thankfully, he survived. What if you listen to her? Would she have been okay with her son being stopped by a very polite police officer, Metropolitan Police officer, for a minute or so, in order to reduce the chance that she would have a knock on the door from that same officer delivering the worst news a mother could ever receive? I think we both know the answer to that.
Listen, I really appreciate your time. Sorry to have gone on, but it's fascinating. Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform, thank you for your time on Talk Drive, 5:28. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 5:31, JK on Talk Drive, the home of free speech and common sense. If you weren't listening, let me just remind you, Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform, has just exclusively revealed to me on Talk the name of the tech entrepreneur who will lead that Doge-style sort of attempt with Kent Council to cut waste and save the taxpayer in Kent money. His name is Nathaniel Freed, a successful engineer who specialises in document control, a self-made man. He is going to be heading that Doge-style look into Kent County Council, almost a blueprint for reform. That's the biggest council they now control. Nathaniel Freed, a self-made entrepreneur, an engineer specialising in document control, will be dealing with that on behalf of Reform, and that is exclusive to Talk. We're delighted to be now joined by the former Defence Secretary, former Tory MP as well, Sir Michael Fallon. Sir Michael, a very good afternoon. Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm a Kent taxpayer as well, Jeremy, so I'm looking out for those Doge savings that are coming our way.
Well, you'll be happy about that, won't you?
I will, if they can find those savings. Sure, I think anybody would.
Good man. Good to have you on. Good to
be on.
Good. Thank you, Michael. Listen, who better than a former Defence Secretary to put today? I'm going to try and keep a straight face to you. Our Prime Minister has stood up today because it's a Monday, and he said that the government's long-awaited strategic defence review is done, and I am committed to increasing defence spending 2.5% of GDP by 2027. And then he sort of did what he usually does and got a bit airy-fairy and said, I've an ambition to hit 3% by 2034, by which time, of course, he won't be in government. From a defence point of view, this talk about nuclear-powered attack submarines and £15 billion worth of investment in a sovereign nuclear warhead programme is all well and good. But where's the money coming from? Because we're skinned. All of a sudden, how is this happening, Sir Michael Fallon?
Well, they are increasing the budget, going up to 2.5% of GDP in the next couple of years. So the budget's getting bigger year by year, and that's good news. Now, the submarines, by the way, were agreed in a deal with the United States and Australia that we would build this new class of submarines. So I don't think it was going to be any secret about that. Munitions we've had to restock because we've given a lot, as you'll recall, Jeremy, to Ukraine.
Yep.
We've been helping Ukraine, and we do need to restock our own inventory. So both those things are welcome. But let's get back to Keir Starmer. He talked about ambition. Ambition is not a target. Ambition is not a date. It's an aspiration, right? And he then went on to talk about leading. And here's the problem. Countries on the eastern side of frontier of NATO, right up against Russia, Poland, the Baltic states, they're already spending over 3%. The United States is spending over 3%. So if the Prime Minister really thinks we should be leading, then we should be setting out a timetable to getting to that 3% as quickly as possible, I'd have hoped, within the next few years.
But you would know me, and I know you, I'm an honest man, and I'm straight. The Tory party were in power for 14 years, and even I, a disaffected Tory who voted Tory all their lives and couldn't in the end, was appalled when your past leader, Rishi Sunak, during the election campaign stood up and said, we're going to make it 2.5%. My question to you and the Tories for 14 years, because this started with Theresa May and David Cameron, because it was an easy cut, wasn't it? And I'm sure you fought against it. I'm not sticking up for Keir Starmer, by the way. I think he's odious. No. But the truth of the matter is that the defence services in this country have been an easy target for years, and it's come back and bitten us somewhat, hasn't it?
Look, Jeremy, yes, we were spending much more on defence in the Cold War. Of course we were. We're spending more even at the turn of this century. We were spending 2.7%. It then declined under the Blair government, declined under us. We then hit the financial crisis. We cut it even further. We then slowly, in fact, it was on my watch, we started increasing it again, and we got to the 2%, which was the target, and very slowly it's crept up since then. Now, legitimately, you can say, come on, you saw what Putin was like. You should have increased this earlier. Yes, the military have got a bit hollowed out. We need to spend more. Perfectly true. We should. And we are now. I welcome that. I welcome the defence review today. And I welcome the 2.5%. That's all good news. But, you know, where we are, it is obvious now that Russia is a very real threat. And we need to spend even more. We need to get onto a war footing. Prime Minister's right about that.
Where'd you get the money from, Sir Michael Fallon?
Well, you have to cut other things, I'm afraid. Look, there are lovely things you want to do. Get to net zero, abolish child poverty, pay more in overseas aid. I bet you, Jeremy, that Ukraine signed up to the net zero target. They'd love to do that. They can't. Their country's been invaded. What I'm saying is defence just has to come first.
Has to be a priority.
Before, the priority,
yep.
Before all your other aims.
And interestingly, and you're an ex-Tory MP now, you're missing it, by the way, or not?
No, certainly not. I did my 30 years old. Very lucky to get the cabinet and all the rest of it. But, I've done my time.
Listen, that ramshackle bunch now, you're better than that. But let me put this to you. And some people would say, oh, this is an outrageous way of describing it. The irony of the government's long-awaited strategic defence review today being announced, our Prime Minister is finally saying we're going to protect ourselves. The China, Russia, that axis with Iran, the problems that we've got, the world is a different place, right?
Right.
But at the same time, our country, and people hate me using this word, is being invaded on a daily basis. I was told today, and you're an ex-defence secretary, that since 2018, and you lot were in power till 2024, 150,000 illegal migrants, Sir Michael Fallon, have come to these shores. Not legal, illegal. There's only 74,000 in the British Army, for God's sake. It's frightening.
It is, and we didn't do nearly enough about stopping it. By the way, I think Labour have found that it isn't actually very easy.
No, great.
The best plan we had was actually to deter people. And I think sooner or later, Labour will actually come back to a variation on Rwanda.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to be sent to Rwanda, you might think twice about setting off in that dinghy from the French beach. They scrapped it as soon as they come in.
Can I put this to you? Can I put this to you though? And I've listened to a lot of people say, you know, oh, the French are encouraging them, or we need to do it offshore and all this sort of thing. Do you not think, because I genuinely do, and maybe you'll put me right, that the pull factor, how soft we are in the United Kingdom, this is why I think the Tories are in trouble, and this is why I think reform is soaring, and it might be rhetoric. But what I call the average Briton, Sir Michael, who've paid their taxes, never broken the law, never asked for a payout, when they look at a situation now where they can't see a doctor, they can't get any help, and they feel that they're eighth in the queue, and they see these people coming into this country, not from war-torn countries, because they haven't brought their wives and kids, dropping their passports in the ocean, coming here, getting a hotel, getting whatever, and disappearing. The British people are, I think, frankly, near the end of their tether. You would understand that, right?
I do, and that's why they've been voting for reform and other smaller parties. I think there is a huge amount of frustration, and we need to redress that balance. And it is ironic that they don't want to stay in France. They want to come here. Why is that?
Tense.
Because in the end, you can get here. In the end, if you wait long enough, you can be granted asylum. If you wait long enough, you can enter the jobs market, and you can start sending money back to your folks back home. We're a softer touch than France. We're certainly a softer touch than many European countries now. Why are they coming here? Because it's too easy.
Final question for you. Really appreciate your time. Kemi Badenoch has spent about a year apparently doing a review as to what went wrong. I could have told her on day one. I don't think there's enough meat on the bone. You hear already theories that she will be out. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch, Sir Michael Fallon?
Well, I think we've got to be fair to her and give her a chance. She's only actually been there since the late autumn. She hasn't done a year yet. The Tories have changed their leader often enough. I think we ought to reflect. We ought to reflect more on why we were defeated. But your point actually is, isn't it time we started laying out some new policies, perhaps taking more responsibility for what went wrong, and then laying out some new policies in a way that Margaret Thatcher did after we lost a couple of elections. Back in the 70s, before you were born, Jeremy.
No, don't be ridiculous, man. I'm 60 in 3 weeks. What are you trying to say?
Whatever. But, we lost elections before. You can lose elections, but you can come back. How do you think Labour came back? They had some disastrous defeats. So, we mustn't despair. We can come back, but we need to get to it now and start putting a genuinely new offer in front of the British people.
Really, really good to have you on. Sir Michael Fallon, thank you very much indeed. Former Defence Secretary on Talk Drive, 20 minutes to 6. We're live across the UK, so you might have heard Zia Youssef, Chairman of Reform UK, exclusively revealed to me on Talk just now that the entrepreneur, the tech entrepreneur that will lead the Doge-style look into everything about Kent County Council. Kent County Council now run by Reform. They're going to do what Trump's done with Elon Musk. Go in and find out where the wastage, where these ridiculous contracts to people who don't do work, just how it's costing the people of Kent. Almost like a blueprint. His name is Nathaniel Freed. He's an engineer, a self-made engineer. He specialises in document control. That was exclusive to Talk. What did you make of Zia Youssef? What did you make of Sir Michael Fallon? What do you make of the whole goddamn bloody country? 0344 499 1000. Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Man, Kev O'Sullivan, I'm merely his fluffer, ladies and gentlemen. He's here from 7 o'clock tonight. He's here Monday to Friday. He's amazing, he's wonderful, he's talented, and we all love him. That's what it says here. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Asylum seekers make up just 0.02% of the UK population. Stop using them as a political tool. Fair enough, your opinion. Afternoon, Jez. PW, I don't know what it stands for. Here's a thought. If anyone turns up on our shores in a migrant boat without ID, they should be considered French, as that's where they've come from. So take them back to France straight away. No ID, no entry. Thank you for what you do. Mark, Zia is just wonderful, intelligent and articulate. What a breath of fresh air. But he does have a plan. Great show. Mark, thank you. Chris says, reform ticker is now 237. Tell Zia Yusuf, keep up the great work. Deborah, Jez, what a refreshing change reform is. Anyone from there always seems to answer questions and not go off on a tangent and answer something else. It makes me feel like there is a chance. Phil's in Hertford. Good afternoon, Phil. Jez, we are missing a real trick here. Everyone that comes across in a boat, the moment they land, they're given a uniform and put straight into an army training camp and instantly become UK soldiers, really. Supports our armed forces and means they give something back. I don't think if you asked the British Army they'd be keen. I could be wrong. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Essex, all right? Lisa, hello, love.
Hello.
I've got a joke about Essex, but I daren't do it because I'd never work again.
Oh, you know what? It's absolutely fine. Us Essex people love a bit of banter.
It's about a bus shelter, but we'll do it off air. What do you want?
Oh, no, we do it off air. I just wanted to say that I have worked in various local authorities for my whole career. I'm nearly 50, so it's a long, long time.
Bless you.
And we absolutely need a Doge-style approach to all local authorities. And I've not just worked in one, I've worked in several. I think it will be very interesting what they find. But you do have to couch it in between budget constraints and demographic growth, which we are really struggling with.
Yeah.
But I think if you dig deep enough, you'll probably find nepotism. You're probably going to find that it's not been scrutinised in terms of budgets for years. I'd be very interested to get under some of the commissioning and some of the contracts in some of these places.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And you think about these councils, and I did make the point that a lot of the expenditure that they make locally is made at national level. But there's also, to me, he made a really good point about taxi contracts, that for taxi journeys that don't exist and people making stuff up. There have to be ways to save money. And you do look at it and you go, how many, it's jobs for the boys, isn't it? You know, how many people have just had their fingers in the pie for too long, right?
And also as well, there is such a large reliance on locum staff, which, you know, actually until we get off of that, which for some reason I don't know why we don't train, develop and promote our own people from this country to do social work and all the various other things that local authorities do, but we don't. And we have a problem with that because I think it's, you know, it's very, very difficult, but I think it is needed. I think whoever they get to do it is going to have to be very, very clever because it's very easy to hide stuff under mountains and mountains of bureaucracy.
Love having you on. Lise, thank you so much indeed. Let's shoot to London quickly. Mick, you're on Talk Drive. Just 1 minute. What you got?
Yes, hello, sir. We'll never stop the boats coming over as long as a human rights lawyer sits in number 10 because the main reason the boats aren't stopped is a so-called application of human rights laws, which seem always to favour those breaking the law rather than those keeping the law. So the first thing we've got to do is take on the legal aid lawyers and the human rights lawyers and put them firmly in their legal place.
I couldn't agree more, but how's that going to happen when your Prime Minister is in fact a human rights lawyer himself who wants all of his mates to have jobs for the boys? And I used the thing earlier. Nobody will be able to explain to me how a democratically elected government can be taken to court by a bunch of lawyers. It's beyond me. Listen, great to have you on. Mick in London, thank you very, very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Robin Lincoln, afternoon. I strongly support the implementation of this council audit as it's a crucial step in identifying financial inefficiencies, overpayments and potential misconduct. Transparency and accountability in local government spending are essential, and I believe this initiative by Reform should be expanded to all councils to ensure taxpayer funds are used effectively and ethically. Well, as you heard exclusively, half an hour ago from Zia Youssef, chairman of Reform, they have got control of Kent County Council, and he told us exclusively they're sending in Nathaniel Freed, a very successful entrepreneur who specialises in document control. He and his team are going to audit Kent County Council accounts and see where all the wastage and all the spending and all the things, a bit like Elon Musk in America. Now, whether you like Reform or you don't, if Kent's your county council and your council tax bill goes down because there's been massive inefficiency and overspending, you're going to think that's great. That's what they're trying to say. This is Talk Drive.
You know, this guy, you know, obviously did a very extreme thing, but I do worry that we've lost sight of free speech in this country, and you know, it's why so many Americans look at us and just think, what is going on? You know, especially with this Public Order Act, you know, under which he was charged. I mean, there have been so many amendments over the years. Yep. I think it's stretched beyond all recognition to prosecute people for, you know, things that are not really, it's not really in balance with whatever that person has done.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 8 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. This is Talk, of course, the home of free speech and common sense. And delighted now to be joined by John Lucas, the night news editor at The Sun, looking very smart, sir.
Thank you.
Are you well?
Very well.
As an Arsenal fan, would you like me to do the joke just to start? How far away are Arsenal from a European trophy? About 4 miles across London. Oh, say that to an Arsenal fan. It gets them every time.
Next year's our year.
The Sun, a great article today we did with Harry Cole earlier about Nigel Farage and when he suddenly said, I'm going to do this. It was a year ago. Tomorrow's newspaper, something to start with, very serious, but a story that won't go away. A new Madeleine McCann search.
Yeah, potentially very, very significant development in the Maddie McCann case. German police are going to start what we think is going to be a 3-day dig. Now, this is going to be just outside Praia de Luz, where she obviously disappeared aged 3 back in 2007. There have been searches there before, one of them related to an area where the prime suspect, Christian Bruckner, used to sort of hang out. Yeah. But this is going to be a new search at a new area. We understand it's going to be close to a house where he used to live in prior to Maddie's disappearance, but he knew that area very well. We understand he used it as a sort of rat run while he was out. He was a prolific burglar and thief. and he used this area as a rat run, including to gain access to a house where he, in 2005, where he raped a American pensioner. So he's currently in prison in Germany, but the big issue is that he is set to walk free potentially in September. So there's a race against time to find more evidence against Bruckner.
Can you it's extraordinary to think that it's how many years ago was it now?
Well, it's 2007, so...
I mean, it's just, honestly, 18 years have gone past. I mean, that landmark Sun documentary on the Bruckner evidence was extraordinary, and it's something that the newspaper, quite rightly, is following through. And I mean, I guess there'll be a lot of people who will say, surely after all this time, but yeah. There is quite a strong belief that there is still good reason to try and find answers.
Absolutely.
Right?
So what we were able to do with this documentary, so it's led by one of our top reporters, Rob Pattinson. He spent a year looking into Bruckner. It's a slam dunk on Bruckner's MO, on his personality, his obsession with small blonde children. We've got corroborating evidence placing Bruckner at sites where witnesses have said he made this confession. We know sort of all about his activities. What the police don't have is forensic evidence, and what they'll be looking for here is, yes, very sadly, they're going to be looking for physical remains, but they'll also be looking for other items, potentially pyjamas, clothing, anything that could have her DNA tying her to a scene where we knew Bruckner was, or more crucially, something that could include his DNA as well, which that would be the missing piece of the puzzle that will hopefully keep him inside. That
landmark Sun documentary online, of course, about Bruckner's evidence. It's an astonishing piece of work from Robert Pattinson, as you said, and it is a story that just won't go away, and it's so emotive, isn't it? The people are, how has it taken that long? How is it? But fantastic and great work from the Sun. A couple other things. Keir Starmer, I've been doing it all day, has put this country on a war footing. We're going to have nuclear submarines. We're going to protect ourselves against, Russia and China and Iran, whilst our country is being invaded on a daily basis by thousands of migrants. Interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, look, this is well overdue. We know that Russia is carrying out sabotage operations. We know they're doing cyber attacks. We've seen in this country they're not afraid to launch chemical and biological attacks if they feel that they can get away with it. And this has been building and building. We've just seen over the last couple of days this extraordinary attack by Ukraine on Russian airfields using drones. So these are the weapons of the future. But also, what Keir Starmer's saying is we're going to bolster our nuclear forces, we're going to spend billions and billions on this stuff. What we're going to be diving into all of this in tomorrow's paper. The embargo's just sort of lifted on what we've been able to say, but we're also going to be asking, well, how are we going to actually be able to afford all this? Because defence chiefs are saying spend 3% of GDP. Well, yeah, but at the moment we're still only going to be spending 2.5%.
Well, 2.5, he says, till 2027, and then rather sort of, it's my ambition to hit 3% by 2034, by which time, of course, he won't be in power, so he doesn't care. That's a really interesting story, and the Sun will follow that. I know you're not a Doctor Who fan, neither am I, but it's a great story. More than half of all Brits who used to watch Doctor Who have stopped tuning into the show, most of them branding it woke, boring rubbish. That's the result of an independent poll conducted as, how do you say his name? Kuti what?
Well, I've been informed Shuti Gatwa.
Whatever. He's exited the TARDIS on Saturday with a paltry 2 million viewers. We used to get that for repeats of Jeremy Kyle at midnight. He was seen regenerating, and this is how you get the audience back. Proper actress, proper talented lady. Former Doctor Who's former companion Rose Tyler, played by the brilliant Billie Piper. She's the new Doctor.
Absolutely. Well, we think she could well be. I mean, this checks out. When you look back at the David Tennant specials in 2023, it was getting 6.1 million.
Yes.
Now you're getting 2.3 million. And they're Whovians is the name for Doctor Who fans.
Whovians?
They're called Whovians.
I imagine, Ryan, are you a Whovian? Not anymore.
They're very, very hardcore fans. So
are they, yeah?
For them to be sort of abandoning this show speaks volumes. Basically, people want to sit down on a Saturday night, be entertained.
They don't want a transgender Dalek that's too offended to go because you might upset somebody, right?
They don't want to be preached to. I mean, some of the stories they've had on there, including with the Daleks, they had a planet of Daleks where a subset were being discriminated against by others. They've had
Daleks being discriminated.
They've had drag queen characters.
Daleks.
They've had all sorts. Obviously, the Doctor at one point developed a crush on Sir Isaac Newton in one bizarre episode. The people don't really want this. They want adventure, they want fun.
What
and
happened to just tuning into good old British television and being able to make your own mind up whether you had a laugh or a crack or whatever now? Oh, my God. The other story, which is utterly fantastic, and when you found the brilliant Sun, feeding cocaine to frankenflies. What the hell's a frankenfly? Could lead to a cure for drug addiction, scientists say. What's a frankenfly?
Absolutely. Well, boffins have discovered that they were able to genetically modify fruit flies to allow them to become addicted to cocaine.
Brilliant.
And what they're going to do is study the behaviour of these flies. Apparently they behave very similarly to how humans behave when...
Be better than having to squash them. Just feed them cocaine and they'll fall off the bloody ceiling.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Stamp on them.
They're going to be buzzing. And
very good. That's going to upset people who say you shouldn't stamp on flies.
Yes.
Shame, you should.
Yeah, and it's going to give hope to addicts out there, because these flies are going to somehow be cured, and that knowledge is going to be passed on to the rest of us.
Can you imagine a fly going to rehab? How do you put a fly on detox? It's listen, everybody knows what I think of the Sun. John Lucas, Night News editor, thank you so much indeed. And tomorrow's Sun, that important story, the new search for Madeleine McCann, as you say. And do check out that landmark Sun documentary if you can on YouTube. It's absolutely fantastic, on the Christian book nor evidence as well. Dr. Woke and Starmer's war footing, and how you can feed a fruit fly. You try saying that, cocaine. The world's gone bleeding nuts. It's almost 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK on Talk Drive. If you want to be on the next hour as I warm up, I simply am Kevin O'Sullivan's fluffer. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Text to 87222. Do please start your message with the word talk. But, my friends, we will head towards the news at 6, which is next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back hour 3 of Drive from Monday. We're live across the UK. Thanks for tuning in tonight. As ever, if you want to be on ahead of Kev O'Sullivan at 70344 499 1000 is my telephone number. You can text 87222. Loads going on, of course, about Sir Keir Starmer talking about how we're now going to have GDP of 2.5. We're going to make the army strong. We're going to make sure that we're on a war footing in case Russia or anybody else invades. But we're going to allow at the same time our country to be invaded on a daily basis by migrants and come up with absolutely no plan to sort that out. Earlier on, interestingly, we had the chairman of Reform UK, Zia Youssef, on. Don't know if you heard the interview, but we got an exclusive. Here's a clip. This is when he, Zia Youssef, revealed the name of the tech entrepreneur who is going to do a Doge-style sort of audit of Kent County Council's accounts. You try saying that. A bit Trump-like. How this person can save money. Have a listen. It's very difficult locally to cut waste because budgets are set by central government. So you're not going to be able to just go into these. I mean, whether you take, is it Elon Musk you're taking to Kent by any chance? Is that why he's resigned from Trump?
Not him. He's a UK tech entrepreneur. He's 28. He's awesome. He's very successful, and he's a volunteer, and he's put together a great team.
Can you tell us his name?
Yeah, his name is Nathaniel Freed. He built a company called talkTV, which was seeded by the British government. He sold that company to US private equity. Again, he's motivated by the mission. He is a second-generation immigrant. He is a patriot, and he's got a team of pretty weapons-grade engineers, forensic auditors, etc.
Interesting there from Zia Youssef. Reform surging in the polls. A lot of people saying, what sort of things would you do? One of the things they've said they will do is send a Doge-style team to Kent County Council to look at the accounts. And then he begs the question, that's like a blueprint if they became the government. There must be, according to Zia Youssef and Reform, millions and millions of pounds that have been misspent or misaudited in Kent. It'd be really interesting to see what that guy does. But Nathaniel Freed, document control and data management, an exclusive there on Talk, 6:05, 0344 499 1000. It's been a very busy day, and there's only one way to sort of overlook at everything. On my first day back from holiday, we saved this man. His political career ended after 30 years. He ended up in a Little Chef. I got him out of the Little Chef onto Talk, whereupon he got a book deal and now traverses the world making millions and deigning occasionally to talk to me. A very good afternoon to Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Oh, God, where are you now, man? Where are you now, Evans?
Well, I'm not on a Little Chef on the M6, I can tell you that for nothing, Jeremy. I'm in Malta. Spending a few days here with friends and sunning myself.
Sorry, did you say Malta? Or
yes.
Oh, I thought you said the Maldives.
Malta.
So we've gone to accept the Chagos Islands as a present. Well, you always look tanned and relaxed. Good on you, mate. You look so much better than when you were an MP. Why did you not leave sooner, man?
Less stress, I think. Yeah. I did my bit for 32 years, but of course, I'm never going to give up politics, Jeremy, as you know, and I love my country and I'm a patriot too. And I want to see the very best for the United Kingdom. Hopefully you'll get me on regularly and I'll be able to share my views.
Always. Let's start with Zia Youssef. Tories, I mean, you're one of the few Tories that's actually prepared to accept that this isn't a flash in the pan. As it stands, reform across the United Kingdom surging to nearly 30%. Research at the moment, I know we're 4 years out, would say they get a majority government, 350 seats. Today, they've announced they will send their first Elon Musk-style Department of Government Efficiency Doge team into Kent County Council to assess wasteful spending. We just had the exclusive from Zia there that Nathaniel Freed, who set up a company specialising in document control and data management, sold it to US equity, made some money, wants to give something back, patriot like you. Even Sir Michael Fallon said, I live in Kent. If it can save me money on my council tax, I'll be very happy. This is another thing. I mean, actually, whether it's a rip-off of Trump or not, this is going to absolutely resonate with people whose taxes are going up, whose council tax went up when they were told it wouldn't, and who feel for years, I guess, that money has been misspent, Nigel Evans.
Absolutely agree. And I live up in Lancashire where the budget is approaching 2 billion. In Kent, it's over 2 billion. And, you know, I don't care whose idea it is. If it's a good idea, then adopt it. And clearly, Donald Trump had an amazing idea in Doge in the United States of America. And replicating it throughout county councils in the United Kingdom is a spiffing idea. This is long overdue. And I do believe that there should be a forensic examination of all the accounts of all the county councils to see where you can save money. There's nothing wrong with that. And I do hope that officers in Kent County Council, as that's the first one to be kicked off, are going to cooperate fully with this young man. He seems to be a very bright spark, 28-year-old, who sold his company. And as you say, he now wants to give a bit back to a mission that he genuinely believes in. And I hope that it's not going to be too long before he's wending his way up the M6, stopping off at the Little Chef, and then getting straight up to the county council to have a look at where we can save money there too.
Question, I know it always comes back to this, but to me, sitting here every day, what Reform managed to do is somehow grab the rhetoric. We've talked about Badenoch and no meat on the bone. I don't want to get down to that to you, but these are policies. This is something that's in black and white, makes perfect sense. Do you look at that and think, why the hell didn't we think about this? Because there's been talk of billions being wasted locally, and the councils that have gone back, Birmingham for God's sake, with all that rubbish problem and everything, and you think, this isn't rocket science, Nigel, is it, really?
No, it's not rocket science, and there are many people who work for local authorities who are earning eye-watering six
so much today. We've got if you are, oh, we're back now. We've lost Nigel, but we've got him, if you know what I mean. We can't see his face. Many people would say this is a good thing. I'm not one of them. Nigel, today, I'm going to do my best impression. Our esteemed Prime Minister, the left-wing human rights-loving lawyer, stood up and said, I'm about to announce the government's long-awaited strategic defence review, and I'm committed to increasing defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, I can't do the voice, by 2027. Then he went flaky like he always does. It's an ambition of mine to hit 3% by 2034, not that he'll be in power. It seems that finally this government, I'm not talking about the past for a minute, are waking up to the fact that we need to consider the threat of Russia and China in Iran, that axis we've talked about across the world. We're going to build up to a dozen nuclear-powered attack submarines. We're going to spend $15 billion on the UK's sovereign nuclear warhead programme. All of this, in my mind, too late, but we're doing it at the same time that our country is being invaded on a daily basis by migrants. Let's first talk about the defence thing, because I feel really strongly about this, and I would never criticise you unless it was necessary. But your government, I believe, and Blair, it was the easy target, wasn't it, defence, for years. Let's just chop defence. Let's just chop defence. Got told today that since 2018, and that was 6 years of you lot, 150,000 illegal migrants have come into this country, Nigel. We've only got 70,000 plus in our armed forces.
Yeah, no, it's completely shocking. And there again, listen, Churchill didn't have an ambition to defend the United Kingdom. He defended the United Kingdom. Yep. He got on with it. Yep. And that's what we need to be doing. So don't have an ambition to get the defence spending up to 3%. If that's what it's going to take to properly defend us, then that's what we need. I've already started to read the Defence Strategy Review paper. And there they talk about, you know, all sorts of new threats. Well, you just don't have an ambition to get it up to whatever it's going to take to make us safe. It is the first role of government to defend.
Do you believe that Tory governments failed in that they did cut defence so massively? You do?
Yes, absolutely. They failed.
And I'll tell you one of the things, and this is really interesting as an ex-Tory, right? I voted Tory in my life. One of the massive things for me that turned me against Sunak, apart from him stabbing Boris between the shoulder blades, right, was when he stood up during the election campaign and said, we're going to increase defence spending to 2.5 GDP. And I remember looking at the television thinking, that's just a tactic, man. That should have happened 5 years ago. That's disgraceful. We should always defend this country, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to get behind our armed forces to make sure that they've got the best kit that they need, the most modern kit that they need. When I represented the Ribble Valley, we had BAE Systems there, Jeremy, and they produced the very best military aircraft that helped protect us. I remember during my years there, too, we had to fight hard to ensure that the government was prepared to spend the money on that equipment. It got quite difficult at times. But I think it is absolutely right that if, at the preface of the review today, it talks about this new heightened threat to the United Kingdom, and they need to ensure that we've got the absolute best kit and that we ensure that we get back behind our brave men and women who are really there to protect us. And we just need to do it and just to get on with it. So don't just talk about it, just do it. It's a little bit like Robert Jenrick not talking about cracking down on crime on the tube. He actually did something about it, and I thought that was a great thing that he did. Same with reform. They're not talking about the possibility of saving money in local authorities. They're setting into a train a person who is clearly expert at what he needs to do to ensure that they can root out where savings can be made. So I think people are a bit fed up with words. They just want to see action.
And that, my friend, is why I would respectfully... That is why, my friend, I would respectfully suggest that your old party is floundering in the polls, because if I hear one more Tory, you've never done it, you've always been straight to tell me, even Sir Michael Fallon said, I agree with you, Jez, we don't need a review. The Tory party doesn't need a bloody review. The Tory party, Bednut, needs to put meat on the bone pretty bloody quickly, in my humble opinion, because all of these things, like the Doge-style reform thing today, even the defence thing, and I'm not in Starmer's camp at all, that grabs the rhetoric, doesn't it? That grabs the initiative of people, because they're hearing nothing from Kemi Badenoch at all.
Yeah, I went to the AGM of the Ribble Valley Conservative Association, and it was a pretty dour affair with a post-mortem about what went wrong, and then a discussion about, what they need to do about it. But there again, it's not rocket science. As somebody there said, we know what went wrong. And so we just need to say sorry and then ensure that we learn from the mistakes of the, we did some great things, but at the same time, we got things wrong. And one of them that we got wrong was stopping the boats. And you are absolutely right to point out the fact that you've got a Prime Minister now saying that we've got to defend the United Kingdom against all threats. Well, one of the threats is clearly the prediction that 50,000 people this year will enter the United Kingdom.
But you've got no chance.
Over the channel.
But you've got no chance, because the only way to stop it, well, two things on my front. One is the ECHR, and that left-wing human rights lovey lawyer is not going to do that to his mates. But I'd love your take on this, right? I've always believed, you can talk about the Navy stopping boats, we talked about it today, you can talk about all those things. I genuinely believe that the pull factor, we're too soft. I don't care what anybody tells me. I know all about, if you're from a war-torn country, absolutely. But most of these men are leaving their wives and children. They're coming over here, dropping their passports, and they're disappearing. 150,000 of them. If you strip it down in basic terms, Nige, right? Tent on a beach in France, 4-star hotel, mobile phone and a credit card in England. The reason that we're now at a point where that's annoying people, right, is we're skint. And our own people and our own services are being affected by this. So people who are not right-wing, they're not far-right anarchists, they're standing up and going, hold on a minute, paid my stamp, never broken the law, never had a handout, being screwed here, and other people are getting more than me. That's why reform, in my humble opinion, is soaring, because they are speaking the language, or they're talking about the things that matter. And for me, the real problem with many Tories still is they'll say, well, it's just a flash in the pan, we're the oldest party, we'll come back. I fear you won't unless you start speaking the language of the British people.
No, absolutely right. And yes, people are fed up. It's seeing all these people coming over, then they're being put in hotels or other accommodation, and they're getting priority treatment on the healthcare as well. And that has got to be absolutely wrong. So if we are looking at using new technology to counter the threats that we face, why aren't we using that new technology in the Channel? Just why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we stopping them? We've all seen the photographs of the French police standing on the beaches, basically looking bemused as all these people are getting onto boats and coming towards the United Kingdom. We're giving France £500 million a year.
Well, hold it there, Nigel Evans, because this is not a particularly good impression, but today a French MP has blamed Brexit's decision to quit the EU. I can't do it. A French MP, I know his name is, what is it? Étonnant Carreau. That was good. Eleanor Carrot, I'll call him. He says quitting the EU, that's to blame for the surge in migrants crossing the Channel. He's the president of Emmanuel Macron's party in the French National Assembly. So the numbers have been increasing since Brexit, which means Britain no longer had a returns agreement with the EU and a very weak asylum policy. Can I put this to you? I don't know where you were on Brexit or whatever, but maybe you could turn that on its head and say that Europe has been doing very little, whilst allowing all this to happen, to punish the United Kingdom for daring to leave the European Union.
Yeah, but isn't it true that people are coming into Italy, coming into Greece, coming into France, coming into Germany? And so they're all in the European Union. So what's going on there then? The fact is that when we were in the EU, we were still at a huge disadvantage. It's quite simple. France does not want to take back the people. They're not fleeing France as refugees. No. They are attracted to come to the United Kingdom. Where that French MP's got it right is that we've made it far too attractive. So as well as stopping the boats, we've got to stop the benefits as well. People shouldn't be allowed to come illegally into the United Kingdom and then get a whole host of benefits. It's just simply got to stop. It's completely wrong. So if I was France, though, I should think again about just saying, oh, it's because of Brexit. It's not because of Brexit. And if I was them, I'd be a bit more worried about what went on in Poland over the weekend, where a Eurosceptic president has now just been elected as leader of their country. You know, so it's not just the United Kingdom that are Eurosceptic. And why were we Eurosceptic? It's because Europe weren't listening. And that is why we left. And one of the reasons why we left too, Jeremy, was to control our own borders. Well, we better get on with it. We've got the ability to do it, and we need to use that new technology to ensure not that we, but basically that we get sufficient manpower into the channel to ensure that those boats get no further. Use the drones that are clearly available to the Ukraine. Why aren't we using them to be able to detect where these boats are coming in and sending out speedboats to ensure that they get no further?
Couldn't agree more. Nigel Evans, before you go, not all is lost. As you sit there or stand there ready for your evening cocktail in Malta, there is some good news. I want your reaction. I want to see the reaction, because huge news today. Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, unbelievable, she set sail for Gaza this afternoon in a bid to break the Israeli blockade. Miss Thunberg, a vocal opponent of Israel's war on Gaza, I'm not going into that argument, who, by the way, now lives on the Jurassic coast, which is false. It was funny, that. She boarded the ship the Madeleine with 11 other activists, including Liam Cunningham from the Game of Thrones. They left Sicily with the distinct aim of reaching Gaza's shores and drawing international attention to the plight of civilians on the Strip. But Nigel Evans, your response, please, to the fact that this ship is diesel-powered. It's true. I mean, you couldn't...
Oh, man. That is classic. That is absolutely...
You can't make it up, can you?
No, absolutely. And listen, this isn't drawing attention to Gaza and what and the atrocities that are going on there. It is appalling that so many people are starving. This is getting a lot of publicity for Greta Thunberg. That's who we're really talking about tonight. We're not talking about anybody else.
But that's the point, isn't it? When these activists jump on something, and they're known for jumping on things, in a way, to me, that almost minimises the impact of the message. Of course, anybody that sees what's happening in Gaza, it's absolutely atrocious and needs sorting out.
Jeremy. She's missed a trick. She should have taken Prince Harry with her.
That's true, but I was going to finish...
He'll fly around the world.
He will, but I was going to finish with a line. It's a diesel-powered boat, but it's frankly the only boat we shouldn't stop. We should push it. We should get a Royal Navy vessel to push it towards the Gaza shores. Listen, mate, how long are you abroad? Are you ever coming home?
Just another couple of days, and then I'm back to the UK.
Just how long are you back for? A couple of days, and then off again?
Not long, no.
Good man. We love having you on. Nigel. Thank you, Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, live and exclusive on Talk Drive. 6:21. We're live across the UK. Thanks for tuning in today, by the way. 0344 499 1000 is our telephone number. Text to 87222. We're back in 3. I am off for a most needed wee.
So if you're a criminal now, you might as well just enjoy yourself because, one, you're not going to go to prison. If you do go to prison, you're going to get let out. And then when you get let out, you're never getting back in.
So the majority of horrible crime, and I'm sure Will attest to this, is committed by a minority of people, right? When it comes to rape and violence, robbery and so on. So if the police aren't currently seen on the streets anyway, detection rates plummet, crime goes up and up and up. When you then allow back out a huge number of people that are basically wrong-uns and are going to perpetuate loads more crime...
Exactly.
I think it might be a recipe for some kind of disaster.
I think it would be.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 6:25, Monday drive until 7 o'clock. JK here, 0344 499 1000. Loads of you texting. Nicola in Norfolk. Hello, Jez. Great interview with Zia Youssef, chairman of Reform. How refreshing to hear questions being answered. He really does come across as genuine, determined to implement proper change. But to hear him saying there is significant work already underway to draft policies and bills in order to hit the ground running on entering government in 4 years is a massive contrast to Labour, who said they had fully costed plans, but when they came to it, they had bugger all. This is why Reform is getting my vote. Hello to Fiona in Leeds. Jez, a lot of councils have limited funds to implement improvements, so a national scheme to share improvements, efficiency processes or systems is a great idea. This used to happen in some UK council departments, did it? I didn't know that. Francis Moore from Wilton. Where's Wilton? I've never heard of a job called document control. Some sort of archiving? Did you interrogate or just get starry-eyed? I've no idea. Francis in Devon. Everybody's called Francis. My husband worked for 2 county councils during his career. One was Kent. The stories he told of waste and laziness were utterly eye-watering, Jez. If they weren't looking at pornography on their computers, they were in the pub. Right, that's Francis in Devon. People are... Goodness me, that's amazing. Sue, we should not be giving legal aid to immigrants. If they want it, they should pay for it themselves. They pay people to traffic them here. If they get to stay, they should have to repay the money it cost us, the taxpayer, to keep them in the first place. Who's that? Oh, sorry. What? Becca. Welcome back, Jezza. Have these lefty liberal idiots realised that if they send our boys and men to war, this country will be left with illegal fighting age men? Women and children beware. Interesting. 0344 499 1000. One of the stories of the day has to be Greta Thunberg. We're delighted to welcome now freelance journalist. Have I spoken to this lady before? You see, I don't even remember anything. They have to nod at me and go, yes, you have. Nicole Lampitt, welcome to Drive. How are you?
All right, thank you, Jeremy.
I don't want you to think that it's just age. I'm 60 in a minute. It's embarrassing. You're supposed to say you don't look like you're going to be 60.
You look like 59 at least.
Brilliant. Fantastic. He said you were cheeky. In all that's going on in the world, Nicole, I mean, with everything that's going on, with our Prime Minister attempting to convince us that he's going to, arm our country so that we can, be prepared, whilst our country is frankly being invaded by migrants on a daily basis. Today, Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, has set sail for Gaza in a bid, she says, to break the Israeli blockade. Miss Thunberg, a vocal opponent of Israel's war in Gaza, boarded the ship called the Madeleine with 11 other activists. Can you tell us more? It's an astonishing story, because Greta Thunberg should be in bleeding school, shouldn't she?
I'm really happy. I don't know about you, but the planet has been saved. Clearly, there's no eco-climate anymore.
No.
There's no problems. That she has the time to get a boat from lovely Catania. I was there last summer. It's beautiful in Sicily. And get a boat to Gaza with the flags and with the kafirs and the dressing up as terrorists to hopefully land on the shores of Gaza, where I'm really hoping that Hamas, that she's allowed in, and that Hamas give her the welcome that they gave all the hostages. And I hope that perhaps they get to take her to the underground tunnels where they're keeping the hostages and maybe give her the same sort of diet that they've been feeding them too.
It's a really to be honest with you, and I'm really glad to have you on. I mean, to me, she is a living embodiment, right, of why it's a bit like Just Stop Oil, right? I'm not trying to trivialise it. All I ever see is people who I don't believe have any desire to believe what they're doing. It's just the latest activist. I'm going to attach myself to it, and that's what we've got now in this country. We seem to have. And trend is the wrong word, but this is the latest fad that I will attach myself to. I said about Just Stop Oil. When the Just Stop Oil thing finished, I knew no more about what Just Stop Oil were about than I do what Greta Thunberg's about. And you make such a salient point. So what, net zero's buggered now? It's done now, is it? She stopped worrying about that. I mean, to me, it's a joke. She says that we're going to reach Gaza's shore and draw international attention to the plight of civilians. Nobody... And I haven't avoided talking about this. Nobody likes what they see happening in Gaza. The atrocities but some of the reporting is unbelievable. I had conversations the other day with people. There are two sides to every argument. And when these activists don the flags, do they actually, in your heart and mind, know what they're talking about, truthfully?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, Greta certainly missed a lot of education, didn't she? When she was campaigning around the world to save the world, which she's done now. Perhaps she missed the lessons on the Middle East conflict, and perhaps it's a little bit more complicated than she might believe. This is someone who's been, basically shouting out Hamas slogans. She says she wants to end Zionism. I don't really know what she thinks she's going to do there or what help she's doing, but in the last few days we've had 2 people gunned down in Washington by someone shouting about who was pro-Palestine, free Palestine. We had someone just yesterday attacking people in America as well, setting them on fire. He was also shouting about free Palestine. So although it's funny to laugh at her because she's stupid, but really it's not funny at all when you think about that it's fashionable to be hating on Jews, and that's what it is really.
I'm quite strong in this. I've got some friends, one particular one whose kids still cannot wear their blazers in London. They go to a Jewish school. I do not, before people pile in on me, I'm not condoning anything. I don't like what I see. War's a horrible, horrible thing. I don't like it. I don't like what's happening to the kids. But I do think we have to understand the atrocities that were taking place and have taken place. I don't think it's all on one side. And I think so many of these Greta Thunberg type people, they see what the populist side is. Or you're right. I mean, does she actually know the facts? Are the facts being... are the facts being broadcast and promoted correctly? I don't know.
This is she's kind of learning via TikTok, and she's learning via one side, and TikTok is very heavily weighted because it's a Chinese outfit. And this is partly about dividing the West. And I actually went to a socialist workers meeting, party meeting, to listen to what they had to say about Palestine. And it's more than just the idea of Israel and Palestine. It's an anti-West movement. They're hoping for they're hoping for the working classes to rise up and rebel, and they're hoping for this revolution that will never come. So in the meantime, we're left with this kind of radicalism, this kind of whitewashing of terrorism. And one of the things that isn't really ever mentioned, apart from Palestinians that I follow on Twitter, which is that Hamas, they're the ones that are enslaving their own people. They're the ones that aren't feeding their own people. There should be plenty of food there. There was plenty of food sent in, and there is more food being sent in, but it's been looted by Hamas. It's sold in the markets. Hamas creams off the profits and uses that to pay their own army.
But if you read or you watch certain news cycles, and I've been away for 2 weeks, you will be told that Netanyahu and the Israeli government are denying aid. They're killing thousands of children. They don't care. They're not interested at all. They're not interested at all. That's too one-sided. I'm sure there are mistakes the Israeli army have made. They've admitted as many. Yeah. But like you, I can't help but still think that Hamas is a terror. When I sat on a breakfast show a year ago with some Palestinian feminists who refuse to accept that Hamas is a terrorist organisation. It's funded by the mad mullahs of Iran, for Christ's sake. Now, whether the Palestinian people have fallen for that or should rise up against that, nobody wants to see what's happening. But how do you rid society, I suppose, of a terrorist organisation, even the ideology? Of course, people don't. I mean, what's happening is awful, but I do think in all of this, people are losing sight of what Hamas did and what Hamas is and is doing to its own people.
Exactly, and I think one of the things is you didn't get rid of Nazism just by beating the Germans, but you got them out of power. You got the Nazis out of power, and that's the important thing. So there is a ceasefire deal on the table.
There is.
It's been now since Friday, I think. It's been agreed upon by the Israelis, by the Americans, the Qataris, the Egyptians. But Hamas has said no. They're saying that they want to carry on in control of Gaza. So while all these pro-Palestinians are claiming genocide and all of this, it's the only army which is apparently being genocided, which is saying, no, we want to carry on. That's the kind of madness that we're in this bizarre world where people are genuinely don't get that Hamas are terrorists, even though we all saw what happened on October 7 because they live screened it.
I couldn't agree more. Just to finish, and so of course I remember you now, even despite the fact I'm nearly 60. Do you think that Greta Thunberg will make a difference internationally?
No, only to her own reputation, and whether that's good or not. I suppose it's a way of staying relevant, isn't it? Because people have stopped talking about the planet.
What will be next? What will be next for Greta? Really good to have you on. Nicole Lampett, freelance journalist. Thank you very much indeed. 25 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're live across the UK. JK and Drive. Barry, what? Oh, Newcastle. Jez, I love the show. Why can't Border Control see boats being loaded and leaving French shores? They could then tell France if those boats arrive at British lines, then a state of war will exist between the two countries and appropriate action will be taken. Huge tariffs on French imports. Arrest of all French fishing boats as possible invaders. God, we're going Trumpian. It's getting on here. What is it, 25 to 7? Do you want to push the button? Go on then.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Only when I wake up every single morning with my mate Mike the Legend Graham here from 6 until 10. It's called Morning Glory. He's up and at it early, you know what I'm saying. 0344. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the laugh of a Tory MP. What, Mark Froswell, why are you laughing?
Because you were being funny. Anyway, move on.
Morning Glory, Mike. You see where I've gone there? MG, Morning Glory, up and at it.
Thank you very much.
He's telling me off, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for clarifying
benevolent tie. Welcome, Shadow Defence Minister, Conservative O'Reilly and Essex. on the day
Yes.
that Sir Keir Starmer stood up, it was the government's long-awaited strategic defence review, and he said, and I'll try not to make you laugh again, I guarantee we'll spend 2.5% of GDP by 2027, and then he got a bit flaky and said it's my ambition to hit 3% by 2034. But you want to tell us about what happened in the Commons, because it was amazing, wasn't it?
Well, we have had literally chaotic scenes. I've literally come hot foot from the House of Commons. The statement is still going on as we speak. Utter chaos. The Speaker in pub English went tonto because what has happened, it transpires that journalists were given a copy of this white paper at 10:30 this morning.
Wow.
Before MPs were allowed to see it. We now know that industrialists, businessmen, were given copies of this at breakfast time before MPs were allowed to see it. Some of the stuff in here is market sensitive. So there's now a really serious issue about how the government gave market sensitive information to some industrialists before the markets opened.
Wow.
Whilst MPs were not given access to the document.
One thing about Sir Lindsay, I like a freebie Hoyle, he's always been very, very strong, and I've seen him dress down several in the Tory government and the Labour government about it is important that you come to the House before you make a statement to the press. Is he going to come down like a ton of brick? Who's responsible for this? John Healey, then?
Well, it's the MOD's paper, but we suspect Number 10 had their fingerprints on this. So the leader of the House, Lucy Powell, who's responsible for sort of parliamentary procedure.
Oh, is that the one that said the dog whistle? Yeah, she's a nightmare.
She gave up, she got up and wouldn't apologise initially. The Speaker then really went tonto. And eventually she gave a sort of grudging apology. But they're still going on now. Now, you might think this is just some arcane argument about parliamentary procedure. It's not. MPs are elected to ask questions.
Yep.
So that's why there's a strong tradition that you make the announcement in the House first, and then MPs can ask, right? And they're meant to have access to the documents in good time to read them so they can then ask an informed question, right? Because we have a number of skills, but telepathy ain't one of them. No. The Prime Minister, one, this was leaked to a number of journalists over the weekend. It was all over the Sunday Times. Two, the Prime Minister gave a press conference in Scotland this morning outside of the House of Commons. Three, this was given to a bunch of journos hours before MPs got it. And four, it was given to a bunch of industrialists before the markets opened.
So what if some of that information led to certain trends in certain markets?
That needs to be looked into.
Do you think Hoyle will be as strong with
Lindsay has always been consistent in this. He has always had a go at governments of either colour who've made statements outside of the House. But today was in a category all of its own because we've been waiting a year for this.
Yep.
And the government said again and again and again, we will announce this in Parliament in the spring. Well, they didn't announce it in Parliament, and we're not in the spring. Now,
let me ask you about the details of it, though. 2.5% of GDP by 2027. One of the things that turned me finally away from your ex-leader in the last general election, I'm being straight with you, was when Sunak had the balls, the temerity to stand up and say, and we will increase defence spending to 2.5%. I'm going to be totally straight with you because that's what I'm paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
Your government, under several prime ministers, always, I believe, wrongly saw, and they tell me the Cold War, but they always saw defence as an easy target, as being cut for years disgracefully. I'm not just laying this at Starmer's door. What happened today is wrong. But successive governments, Marc-Francois, have cut defence. Now, apparently, it's going to get to a level that apparently is acceptable. That's taken years and years and years. But the big thing from people today that are phoning this show is saying, so we're going to have nuclear-powered attack submarines, we're going to spend $15 billion in the nuclear sovereign warhead programme, but we're allowing our country on a daily basis to be invaded by migrants. It's an interesting analogy, isn't it?
Well, it was the Defence Secretary at the weekend who famously said, his words, we have lost control of our borders.
Yep.
So look...
That's the Defence Secretary.
Yes, yeah, but on the money, on the issue about the money... The last time we spent 3% of GDP on defence, fact, was in 1996 under a Conservative government. But let's get on to what's going to happen now. Here's the fundamental flaw in this document.
Yep.
It's been, the review was led by Lord Robertson of Port Ellen, a former Labour Defence Secretary, a former Secretary General of NATO, assisted by General Richard Barrons, a four-star general retired, and Fiona Hill, a foreign policy expert who used to work in Washington. So they know what they're talking about. The Lord Robertson gave another article to the press today before it was all debate in Parliament, but he said in order to deliver this, you must spend 3% of GDP on defence. Yep. So this is all predicated on spending 3%. This morning, the Prime Minister wouldn't confirm that.
No.
The Defence Secretary in the House said this was an ambition. Well, I have an ambition to go to the moon, but I'm never going to get there. So the fundamental point is they haven't got the money.
No.
They made all these promises about...
Well, they'll raise taxes, won't they? That's what they'll do.
Well, even if they had the money, Healy came out a few days ago and said it'll be 3% by 2034, and then had to rescind it because Rachel from Accounts wouldn't have it. But even if they were to do it by 2034, and they're not saying they will, that's 9 years away.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't got 9 years. No. Look at what happened over the weekend with the drone strikes on Putin's long-range bomber.
Completely agree, but is it not slightly ironic? I mean, you said about 1996, but it is also fair to say that for many, many years, successive governments cut defence spending, and it is a disgrace because we are at a point where we are not spending enough, and we are told that we haven't got the money to spend on it, but we do manage to find $9 billion to give the Chagos Islands away, for example.
Well, don't preempt me.
What do you mean? I'm just telling you.
No, on the point about spending more broadly, because it deserves an answer, let me have a go. In the 1980s, under Margaret Thatcher, when the Berlin Wall was still up and the Cold War was at its height, we spent a bit over 5% of GDP on defence. The bad guys were on one side of the wall, the good guys were on the other. There was absolute clarity, and the public supported the fact you had to spend a lot of money in order to keep the peace.
Sure.
The Berlin Wall comes down in 1989. Governments all over the world, thinking they now lived in a safer world, took what we often call the peace dividend, and across the West, they all cut their defence spending, right? So this was a trend right across the Western democracies. We've now realised, after the invasion of Ukraine in 2014, the first one, and the full-scale invasion in 2022, we clearly need to increase our defence spending.
So why did it take Rishi Sunak to 2024 to say he was going to increase it then, after the first Ukraine invasion in 2014 and the second one in 2022? That's a perfectly justifiable question. He said it in the election campaign, man.
It is. And we said during the general election that we would increase defence spending to 2.5% within 7 years. Labour then said 2.5% by 2027, and they then said 3% at some point in the next Parliament when economic conditions allow.
Yeah.
Healy on Thursday says, no, it's 3% by 2034, and then at the weekend he has to backtrack because Rachel went bananas, and the Prime Minister, who the last time I looked at a constitutional textbook is supposed to be in charge, at this press conference outside of the House of Commons, completely against the rules, this morning was asked repeatedly by your media colleagues, will you guarantee to spend 3% of GDP? And he ducked it every time. So in simple pub English, this is a wish list without the cash.
Let me ask you one final thing. Couldn't agree with you more. Lovely man. You might have seen... can't wait for this. You might have seen the Reformers announced today. It's going to set its first Elon Musk-style Department of Doge team into local authorities. It's going to send it to Kent County Council.
Yes.
We exclusively revealed on this show earlier Nathaniel Freed, a gentleman with a very successful business that he sold to US companies because it was successful, and he's going to go in with this crack team and look at inefficiencies and money that's been wasted. I put this to Nigel Evans. He said, you're absolutely right. This, with respect, is exactly what the British people want to hear at this exact moment in time, isn't it? And I know it's difficult, I know it's just about this, but should we not be hearing more stuff like this that's relevant to what people feel from your party and from your leader right now, because Nigel Farage and Reform are grabbing the headlines again. Of course you're up in arms about that, excuse the pun, I understand that. But that's quite a good idea, isn't it, the Doge-style look at auditing accounts of local councils?
Maybe. I'm an Essex MP, I'm not a Kent MP. Let's see what they find.
Do you think there must be overspending in local government?
Well, look, you've asked me about reform. So the first duty of government, above all others, is the defence of the realm.
Yep, absolutely.
I've believed that since the day I believed it long before I was. I've been an MP for 24 years. I could drown you in a Hansard's where I've called for more defence spending when I was a backbencher, when I was a minister, right? Today, in the Commons, big row about this, statement on this, no Reform MP in Parliament. Or none in the Commons chamber.
Really?
Nope. Well, maybe they popped out, maybe while I was on the way over here, they've come back in. But with a statement, you have to be in there at the start in order to be called. You know, the idea is if you don't hear the initial statement, you're not allowed to ask a question. I couldn't see anyone from Reform in the House of Commons on this.
You're right, though. Defending your country is the most important thing. One final question. Let's say he does bring in 2.5%. Let's say he then says we need to make it 3%. Surely, and you're, you know, Shadow Defence Minister, the only way they can possibly afford this, because Rachel and accounts, there's nish dosh, there's no money, is to raise taxes, Mark Francois, which is exactly what he said he'd never do.
Well, no, the first thing you do is you don't give 30 billion quid to Mauritius to rent back an island that belongs to you in the first place. No, I mean, that is palpably bonkers, but that is the official policy of Her Majesty's government.
I do love having you on this show. You're covered in armbands, you look in the business, but are you going back there now or what?
No, I'm actually going to do another media outlet, but you won't thank me for mentioning it.
And
then I'm doing another media, but I came here
first. You're a legend. We loved having you on. Come back very soon because you owe me dinner. Mark Francois, now he's choking on that. You see, honestly, get a Tory to buy your dinner is hard work. I'll buy dinner. 10 to 7, Talk Drive.
You know, this guy, you know, obviously did a very extreme thing, but I do worry that we've lost sight of free speech in this country, and you know, it's why so many Americans look at us and just think, what is going on? You know, especially with this Public Order Act, you know, under which he was charged. I mean, there've been so many amendments over the years. I think it's stretched beyond all recognition to prosecute people for, you know, things that they're not really, it's not really in balance with whatever that person has done.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are, welcome back. What is it, 7 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're live across the UK. So I am employed, ladies and gentlemen, merely to fluff, prepare and ready the nation for the legend that is, what does it say here, Kev O'Sullivan, the broadcaster's broadcast. She's on from 7 o'clock. Amazing show, it says here. I'm joking. 0344 499 1000. You can get your call in early. Looks like coming on stream. Coming up, Kevin O'Sullivan. Is Petrie on from 10? Is she? She's a dish. See what I did there? Anyway, listen, all of that aside, most importantly, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, where are you going to be? I hope you're going to be by your radios, by your tellies, because the legend that is Mike Graham will be here. Lots of legends, but he's the biggest. He'll be here with Morning Glory. At this moment, he's probably at home with a glass of Vino Tinto de la Casa. That's red wine for you un-Spanish-like people. He's probably cooking something nice. I myself will get an egg and cress sandwich and a bottle of juice on the train. Let's get to the phone lines before I go home, because I live there. Let's go to Cambridgeshire, sort of in the middle, isn't it? Stephen, you're on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, Jez. How you doing, mate?
I forgot my bleeding name. Hello, whereabouts in Cambridgeshire, Stephen?
Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire.
Where? Huntingdon. Great racecourse. I won a race there once at Huntingdon Racecourse. Very, very nice, near Peterborough. What you got for me, kiddo?
Well, I just find it funny that Mark Francois is sitting there going, well, there was no Reform MPs in today watching this and this. When they form the next government, they don't have to worry about sitting in, like, little meetings. They can actually dictate the policies.
I think it's very interesting. I like Mark. I like Mark a lot. Mark's brave enough and good to come on, and he sticks to his principles. But let's be honest. The truth is that sort of attack is the best form of defence. The truth of the matter is, I asked him that they're sending their first Doge-style team to Kent County Council. We got a broadcast exclusive earlier that Nathan Freed is the man. Zia Youssef told us, the chairman, just after 5. He's the man that's going to go in and talk about waste in that council. And if it works there in Kent, that could be a blueprint. I put that to Mark Francois. Surely that's the language you should be talking about. He's a politician. He went. They weren't even in Parliament. That basically means I don't want to answer that, because you're probably right. That's the way it is. I agree with you. I think, what do you think of Reform's idea of sending people in and saying, you're spending money you shouldn't? It's great, isn't it?
Well, it's brilliant, because obviously if they can find out wasteful spending, which everybody's council tax is going up beyond belief, if they can save a few pounds here and there and cut back on nonsense spending, it's got to be a good thing.
Good man. Listen, great to have you on. Stephen, near Huntingdon in Cambridge, just go to Hull. Phil, you're on Talk Drive. Hello, pal. Are you all right?
Yeah, welcome back. Oh God, Starmer, what a disaster. Talk about King Midas in reverse. He's absolutely, that's him. I don't want him anywhere near any negotiations, anything to do with anything. I actually think Max Swin is trying to get rid of him and put who gets stressed in the dark in it.
Listen, Morgan McSweeney now, that's just a private joke. He's the chief of staff. He managed to shaft the other one. The thing about Starmer is, and I think it's, I tried to make the point to Mark Francois about Badenoch, whether you agree with the reform or not, and we can almost finish this show as we started it, right? For me, politics is about, if you're talking about stuff and you're showing some conviction, you're prepared to say, look, I might make mistakes, but come with me on this journey. Badenoch's got her head in a review. Still don't know what she thinks. Starmer has lied about almost everything. And the one thing that I keep saying until I'm blue in the face is I think an increasing number of people will be the accurate way in Great Britain are going, maybe they haven't been in government before, reform. But basically, what could be worse than the bunch of dullards we've had for the last however many years? And I think that because reform is talking the language that I think a lot of people are into at the moment, which is, you know, councils charging more council tax and not giving great efficiency, the NHS being in dire straits, defence, immigration, all those things that matter to the voters, I think that's why it works right now. Don't you?
Yeah, but the thing is, he lied to control of the Labour Party. He lied about all these pledges. They all went out the window.
And the British people fell for it.
And look, he's deal with Europe. What's the big? Oh, E-Gate, you'll get to the beach 15 minutes earlier. The only trouble was that up to the EU, it's up to each individual country. So you could go through an E-Gate in Austria and not be able to do in Belgium. So that's one of the big deals. The fishing down the Swanee, we're all snookered on that. Chagos Islands, everything it touches just turns to stinky poo. It's useless.
Everything he touches changes to stinky poo. Very kind of you, Phil in Hull. I was going to put another call on, but apparently we've been deigned with his presence. Ladies and gentlemen, I am employed for a little while longer to be simply the fluffer and warm-up act for your next legend. Kevin O'Sullivan, good evening.
Welcome back, Mr. Kyle. Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm very good. Did you go camping? You did, didn't you?
My kids took me glamping, and it was going all right for about 24 hours, and then I said, where's the shower? And it was a bleeding bucket in a field. And I rang a good friend of mine who's been quite successful. He went, the nearest I've got to camping is one of those 5-star lodges on Loch Lomond. Cheers, you must be nuts. Yeah, no, it was nice to be with the kids. What you got for us? It's a day.
Well, look, I've been. Keir Starmer has sent out all his flunkies and minions ever since Saturday, the ludicrous day when nearly 1,200 migrants came across the channel, proving that all his policies, smash the gangs, and were just ridiculous. It's getting worse and worse. And